Awesome to
Excellent.
speak to you, man. Thank you so much for coming on. I really do appreciate it.
Oh, no, it's an absolute pleasure, man. Good to be on.
Awesome. Do you want to have a little chat first, just between you and me, or do you want to just crack on and we can get to know each other whilst we're having a chat? It's entirely up to you.
Whatever normally works best for you. I'm easy either way.
Lovely job. Well, we've got shed loads of questions, so how about we just crack on, have a chat, and get through it, folks.
Game on.
Welcome back to Brew Time. Look who we got. We got the legend Joey Evans is joining us from South Africa as well, aren't you?
Yeah, that's it. Yep. Yeah, we got
There
a
you
big thunderstorm happening outside here. So I've got battery backup on already because we often lose power when we have thunderstorms. So here we go.
Wow. Okay. Well, we've got, obviously it's bonfire weekend here, isn't it? So there's loads of fireworks going on outside and my dog is going mental. So she might join us for a little bit. We'll see.
That's all good. That's all good.
Mate, thank you so much for coming on. It really is an absolute honour to have you on here to have a little chat. There have been so many people asking me to get you on here, and I believe some of the lads even harassed you at the Adventure Bike Festival in the UK this year. They said they found you and cornered you and said, you got to get on, you got to get on. So thank you very much for coming on.
No, it's an honour to be on the show. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Mate, do you have a tipple of choice, a beer at all?
I'm just good. I just got a Coke Zero here, but that'll do me good tonight. Thank you.
Oh, okay, mate. I'll crack a little tinny open. So, Slange, here's to your health.
Good.
Right, Joey. Can I throw the floor open to you to begin with? Can you just introduce yourself and then we can go from there? How about that?
Yeah, sure. So, sure. Where do I start? So I'm Joey Evans. I live in Johannesburg, South Africa. I'm passionate about riding motorcycles, about racing motorcycles. I guess I guess you could say I'm done with racing now. I'm 47 years old. And now I love adventure biking. I love riding, dirt bikes all over the world. I want to just ride in as many places with as many guys. My passion right now is to really ride with guys, like the local guys in different places. So not just ride through places, but ride with guys in places. Yeah. I'm married. I've been married for coming up 25 years and I have 4 daughters. So yeah, they're aged between 18 and 23 now. So yeah, that's pretty much me.
And it's just totally not mentioned, like one of the most major things in your life, I'm assuming so far, the accident, which we will get onto.
Sure.
If you're okay, I'm assuming you're okay talking about that.
I'm
and
an open book. Anything goes. Anything goes. Nothing's off limits. You're good.
Lovely job. Now, Joey, you specialise. You're an off-road guy, aren't you? You like the dirt. You like to do the off-road stuff.
That's it. In the dirt. That's it.
That's it. Might mean something else in the UK if you say that. But
okay, got you. Okay, bear that in mind. I like off-road bikes. Thank you.
You competed in the Dakar.
Yes. Yeah. 2017. Yeah.
Wow. I mean, that in itself is an incredible achievement. But what led up to that is something, obviously, which we will touch on during this chat. How long do you have, by the way?
All night.
You sure? Right, spot.
Yep,
you might regret saying that because some of these go on a long time.
We're good. We're good.
All right, bud. I'll not keep you all night, I promise.
No, I don't mind.
Yeah, so obviously you competed in the Dakar in 2017. 2007, you had has been a life-changing accident, but obviously it could have been so much worse, I would say, for the vast majority of people, and your strength of mind and the support that you've had round about you has enabled you to progress to where you are now. And obviously you took on the Dakar in 2017. Can we have a little chat? If we rewind a little bit, how long have you been into your bikes? Is that something that you've done since you were knee high, or is it something you came to later in life, or what?
Yeah, sure. No, I'm actually, it's a bit unusual. A lot of guys grow up on motorcycles who end up racing and stuff, but I wasn't one of those guys. I always wanted a motorcycle as a kid, but I grew up one of 6 children and we didn't have a lot of money growing up. So, the closest I got was a BMX, and man, I loved my BMX. I'd ride my BMX all over, and we'd build ramps in the bushveld with my brothers and my buddies and things, and make tracks. And that was kind of I grew up on bicycles, I guess you could say. And I actually bought my first bike, motorcycle, with my own money when I was 26 years old. So I was working, earned money, and I bought a secondhand CR 250, the two-stroke motocross bike. And then I got into motocross, and I did motocross for a little bit, and then I did the freestyle stuff, with the tricks and things, and then I kind of discovered off-road and enduro, and that was where I found my passion. Off-road enduro, I love that stuff, riding cross country and rivers and mountains and forests, and that was really where I found my passion. And then I started racing, off-road and enduro, and I did races like the Botswana 1000 and the Roof of Africa in Lesotho and those kind of things, and a lot of local races, regional championships, that sort of stuff. And I really got into it for a few years of racing. And then 2007 was the day I had the big accident, and it was just a Saturday, much like any others, and I lined up at the start of a race. I was lying second in the championship. It was the second last race of the season. If I won that race, I could win this championship. And that was like all I could think about on that start line. And then that was the last thing I remembered. And the next thing I remembered was waking up, lying in the dirt. My helmet was off, and there's just people looking down at me.
I mean, that was literally like the first bend, wasn't it? The first corner in that race.
Just heading into that first corner, what happened was all the bikes came together, and I had a pretty good start. They reckon I was one of the first guys into the corner, and a guy, he overshot the corner basically, and he kind of teed me up, and he crashed into sort of my swing arm. I don't remember. This is what I was told. And then I had a massive high side, and I basically landed on the top of my head, and smashed 12 of my teeth just right out, all smashed down into the gums, and broke my back. And I'd broken my T8 and T9 vertebra, so sort of chest height. And I broke the vertebrae off the ribs and crushed my spinal cord. And as I'm waking up there lying in the dirt, I realize I can't feel or move my legs. Everything below my chest is just like dead meat, like attached to your body, no feeling, no movement, nothing. And obviously that was, I didn't understand what a spinal cord injury was at the time. I didn't know any of these kind of things. There was a lot of complications that day as well. I ended up lying in the dirt there for several hours, and then I was transported by road, 3 different hospitals over the next 48 hours, and landed up at a spinal unit in Pretoria. And that's when I learned what a spinal cord injury was. And the doctors told me that that's how it's going to be the rest of my life, that I'll never be able to walk again, never be able to feel anything below my chest. It's all gone. And that's how it's going to be forever. And at first I was like, forever? Like, it can't be forever. But then the days ticked away, and my legs just got skinnier and skinnier. No feeling, no movement, no bowel control, no bladder control, can't digest food. And suddenly my whole life just kind of went and just kind of came crashing down.
My God. What sort of time scale are we looking at between that, when you're thinking, oh my, this is it, this is my life now, to when you had an inkling of, no, I'm not having this, let's go?
Yeah. At first I didn't believe it. I'm a pretty positive guy, and I was like, no, man, we'll figure this out. And then as I learned more about spinal injuries, and the days and weeks are going and all my body's disappearing, and it's like, man, you got to kind of accept this fact, that you're going to be in a wheelchair the rest of your life, and this is all gone. And it was tough. It was a dark place, kind of going to psychologically. And it, I had 4 little daughters at the time. My oldest daughter was 7. The day I had the accident, it was actually the day before her 8th birthday when I had the accident. And yeah, man, I'm supposed to be a dad. I'm the only breadwinner, in our home. It's oh man, and all of a sudden everything's gone. And you kind of, like, when you're in these sort of places, you have to make a decision. And I decided in that hospital that, I might not be able to use my body, but I've got full mental function, or at least the same as I had before the accident. But I've got my mind. I am who I am. I can still do stuff. I can still be there for my daughters and for my wife, and there's still a lot I can do. There's still a lot of value in this, And I basically made a decision in the hospital that I'm I'm going to live, you know, no matter how bad this is, I'm going to live and I'm going to do the best with what I've got, you know, whatever I can do. I'm going to do the best with whatever I can get. And probably something that I haven't mentioned in ages, man, but I just thought about it now, was there was a guy that I met when I was getting fitted for a wheelchair, and he was getting fitted for like his second or third wheelchair, like years down the line, you know. And it turned out we started chatting, and it turned out he had the same physiotherapist as me. And I went back to my physiotherapist and I said to her, oh, I met, you know, whatever this guy's name was, I don't remember now. And she was like, oh, how's he doing? You know? And I said, no, he was getting fitted for a wheelchair. And I remember she said to me, oh, it's so frustrating. He's one of those guys that could possibly have walked again, but he just never put in the effort. And when I heard that, I was like, what? You know what I mean? And I thought, man, I don't want anyone to ever say that about me, you know? And so then it gave me that thing where it's like, well, I don't know if I've got a chance of walking again, because sometimes you simply don't, you know, medically wise, it's a complete injury. But I decided, man, I'm going to do everything I can to give myself the best possible chance of having the best quality of life going forward. And so then I fully committed to this. And I was quite fortunate that my injury was what's called incomplete. And so they fused my back to take pressure off the spinal cord. And then as the weeks started to pass, I started to get little bits back, you know, little bits of feeling, little bits of movement. And then slowly but surely, as weeks turned into months, I got to get a bit more and a bit more, but obviously all the muscles atrophied. So it's lots of work to try and get stuff back. And I got more and more, and I started to learn to stand again. And I started to learn, to walk with like these crutches and braces on my legs and all that sort of stuff. And slowly, a little bit more, and eventually learned to walk again.
Yeah, it's interesting you brought up that about the other chap in the wheelchair, because I have your book, Para to Dakar. I've got that on audiobook. And I remember that really struck a chord with me when I listened to it, was that, you know, that guy, it was the mental strength, and what am I trying to say here? It's like the mental strength that you have to try and overcome an injury. It's like, you know, you've got to just keep going and keep going and keep going. And obviously you have that, and that guy didn't, and you just think, oh man, you know, like, I think you think he's aware of that, or
I don't know, you know, and I thought about it since, because it's like, it's so, you can't, you know what it's like, you can't judge other people because you don't know what his life experience is, or you know that sort of setup. So it's very difficult to say what he didn't realize. But it was something that, one of the frustrating things is when you have a spinal cord injury, is that you say, okay, how much can I get back and how long will it take? Like I'm a numbers sort of guy. I'm like, well, give me a time frame. Give me, like, what am I in for here? You know, like when you break a bone, you go and they put a cast on, and if they said, yeah, we'll just see how it goes, you're like, no, like, how long am I wearing the cast? You know, you want to know. 6 weeks, you know. And with a spinal injury, they've got nothing. They were like, maybe nothing, maybe something, who knows? Yeah, and you're like, what do you mean? But realistically, 95% you're going to get nothing back. And I'm like, what? And so then there's no way to like measure performance. There's no way to like, what do I do to fix myself? You know, there's no way of doing that. And so it's very easy to just go like, well, there's nothing I can do. But meeting this guy made me realize that, yes, you have a ceiling, or you have a limit on your recovery from a medical point of view, but you won't get to your ceiling unless you put everything in. And so I don't know what my ceiling is, but I know if I put everything in, I'm going to get the best possible outcome. And that was something that was a mindset change for me, where it's like, this is my life and I need to be all in, all chips on the table. We're all in. And that was the changing point of, that I was going to just keep going no matter what. I don't know where we're going to get, but just go.
At what point did you set your sights on the Dakar? At what point did you go, right, I'm going on that line. Get me on that start line.
Oh man, I tell you what, I wanted to race the Dakar before I broke my back. You know, I heard about the race, and I'd seen some videos and some stuff about the race. And I just knew when I saw that, I was like, that's my race, man. I love outdoors. I love survival. I love, all that kind of stuff. And obviously I love racing bikes. And then you have all these faraway exotic countries and it just was like, it's the toughest off-road race in the world. And I was just like, I got goosebumps now just talking about it. I was just like, yes, that's what I want to do. And so before I broke my back, it was like my goal, I'm going to race the Dakar. But not only is it very difficult from a, like a racing point of view, but coming from South Africa, being a married guy with 4 children, I didn't grow up with any money, and the job I was doing is I was fixing swimming pools. I had my own little business. I'm fixing people's swimming pools and stuff, and so I'm not in some high paid job or have tertiary education or anything like that. So financially, to get to Dakar is also near impossible, and so I'm in this place where it's kind of a goal, it's a dream, but it's like how achievable it is very debatable. And then in that hospital, I remember lying in that bed in that hospital and thinking about that goal. And when I decided I was gonna commit to live and stuff, I thought about my dream to race the Dakar on this goal, and I thought, man, if I could still do that now, that would be a crazy story, man. That would be just awesome to come back from this and to do that. Yeah. That would be just crazy. And at the time, it wasn't really something I could tell everyone about, because here I'm this paralyzed guy and in a thing. But I basically made a decision in that hospital that I'm going to race the Dakar. That's going to be like my physical goal, like this line in the sand, that one day when I do that race, that will symbolize me beating this injury. And it was at a time when I didn't know if I would walk again or not even. And so to commit to something like that, obviously at that time was pretty bold commitment. But I decided that's what I'm going to do. That's going to be this big goal. And so it was born. I guess the full commitment was in that hospital.
How long did it take before you told your wife?
You know what? She knew about the goal, before I broke my back. She knew about this race. She'd watched it on TV. She knows it's crazy. She's like, yeah, Joey, you and your dreams, kind of thing. And I think, I'd mention it. I don't think I mentioned it right in the beginning then, but I certainly mentioned it over the years. But it was always... It was like a pie in the sky kind of like crazy dream, that it's like, it was one of those like, like we've all got mates who are like, I'm going to do this or that. And you're like, I bet you will, he's not going to do it, kind of thing. Yeah. I'm sure it was a bit of that. So it didn't really seem like it's not like every day you're working at that particular goal, so it didn't really seem achievable by any means to anyone else and probably including her. But it was, I'd mentioned it now and again, and slowly through the years, and then suddenly, I started doing steps towards it. I learned to walk again, and then I bought a secondhand motorcycle about 2.5 years after breaking my back, and I got all the suspension lowered, and I cut the foam out of the seat so I get my feet down so I could ride again. And I completely sucked, and it like took a while to start to, learn to ride and things. And then I started to race again, because now I needed to start building up this Dakar CV and things. And I kept getting time barred at races, and then I started to finish, and then I did my first multiple day race, and suddenly I'm starting to make like just little bits of progress towards this. But it was really only when it was probably 2015, which would be 8 years after breaking my back, where I sat down with Meredith and I said, right, 2017, that's the year. We're going to do it in 2017. And suddenly, probably for the first time in all of that, now it was very real. Now I'm putting a date on it, and I'm like, boom, we're there.
You've got to be accountable to yourself. Now, when you put it out there, don't you? When you say, right, I'm going to do something, bang, that's it. Yeah. You got to stand by it.
It was totally like that. And it was actually a little bit by chance that I'd mentioned it to one of the guys, and he was the organizer of a race called the Dakar Rally, which was this super cool rally we had here in South Africa. His name was Alexander. and Alexander Nel. And I was at the 2015 race. It was a 7-day race through the Northern Cape of South Africa and Botswana, rally race. And I did this race. And at the end of the race, at the prize giving, and this is before I've even told my wife, it's 2017. And, but I'd kind of mentioned to him, I'm thinking about, this sort of stuff, but I hadn't like fully committed. And he stood up at the prize giving and he's like, and we've got Joey who's going to do Dakar in 2017. In front of all the guys that ride. And they must say, Joey, what? And I'm like, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. And so it's kind of like, he put it out there and suddenly I'm like, I'm fully committed.
Wow, that was it. The path starts. You mentioned Meredith, your wife there. Oh, you don't mind me saying this, but she, listening to the book, I mean, she's plainly instrumental in not only your recovery from this, but just your life in general. Like, you two just seem rock solid. Can I ask, what difference do you think would it have made to you had you not had like the outside influence of Meredith in your family? If you were a single guy and you'd gone through that, like, is that? Yeah. I mean, can you possibly contemplate that? And I don't know.
100%. No, you know what? It's I look at the journey that I've had, over those years, and man, for me personally, I think it would have been too much to handle on my own. I don't think I would have ever even got through the accident and that kind of stuff, because when you're in such a place where you're so, physically broken, all your dreams, all your goals, all that sort of stuff is gone. And you look at it and you go like, the rest of my life like this, physically disabled, all that sort of stuff, it's not even worth living, man. And so I think, my daughters certainly gave me purpose to keep going. And, Meredith was a massive support. We were saying now with the, sorry, man, I've got notifications coming up. I'm trying to just stop. No worries. I lost my train of thought. Okay. So, I was saying that, so obviously when I'm telling her, hey, this is what I want to do and things, it's obviously like that. We see life differently, so I'm a risk taker. She's not a risk taker. So obviously there's that kind of side. But then after I told her and I'm doing these things and I'm working towards it, there's times where I'm self-doubting, where I'm going like, man, I don't know if I can do this. I'm not good enough. I'm not strong enough. I'm not this. And she would be like, hey, what are you talking about? Look what you've overcome. You can do this. Really? And so she's the cheerleader behind me going like, you better freaking do this. She said you're going to do it. And she certainly, she supports me, and she also helps me to believe in myself when I'm doubting myself. And that makes a massive difference, having people in your corner, having people that support you. I think sometimes it's family, like in my case, but other times, what it's like, you got your group of mates, or you've got, that one person who believes in you and that kind of stuff. And that certainly makes you try harder and do better and be a better person.
I'm into that. Yep. There's something you say in your book that really struck a chord with me, particularly at the moment, because of something a very close friend of mine is going through. I remember you saying that in your dark times, when you're feeling very desperate and not sure about the future and stuff, and you said that prior to this accident and you experiencing what was going on, you didn't really understand other people who considered taking their lives or took their lives and things like that. And it really struck home with me, because I have a very close friend at the moment who's going through this. He's attempted a number of times, and that's exactly what he said to me very recently. It was just like, I used to be a police officer, and he was a policing officer as well. And obviously you deal with people with mental health frequently. You deal with people who've attempted, people who've been sadly successful. And he said exactly the same thing. He said, I never ever realized what these poor people are going through until I'm now in that situation. And it left me in a position where I was just like, fuck, I don't know what to say. I don't know what that's like. Can I ask you, if you're willing, what sort of advice would you have for somebody who's in such a place?
Oh man, can I tell you that it's one of those things that I'm like, it it's hard, man. There's no easy answers to this kind of stuff. I had that guy that I spoke about in the book. Yeah, I think it was there was the guy in my final year of school who committed suicide, and I didn't. At the time, it just seemed crazy. I was like, why would he do that? And he seemed like he was a gifted athlete. He did well in school. And it was just one of those where I didn't get it. But lying in that hospital bed, I got it. Like, I got it. Where I looked at my life and I thought, no. And I promise you, I could have easily just gone like, I'm done, and checked out right there. You kind of look at your life and you go like, this isn't, there is no joy in my future. There is, say again?
Sorry, mate, you totally froze, but you've come back. You've come back now.
Oh, okay, cool. Okay. I was saying that like, I looked down, I looked down this future to my life, and I see no joy, no happiness. It is suffering until I die. That's kind of how it seems. And so you go like, I don't want that. It's not worth living for. And that is how it feels when you're in that position, that there's just nothing there. And then obviously, what I did is, I guess the strategy you're asking about, like what could you say to people? Now, everybody's different. There's no, like I was saying, there's no easy answer to like fix this, but a strategy that worked for me was to not think about my whole life, to not think about the years that's going to come and all the stuff I'm going to miss out on and all the things I can't do, and all that sort of stuff. I broke it up into manageable amounts of time. So it was first thing in the morning, I'd say, right, I'm just going to think about today. I'm just going to do today. I'm just going to do my physio sessions, do the stuff I have to do with the catheters and all this sort of stuff, and I'm just going to do today. And that was then manageable. But there were days where even one day wasn't manageable. And I would be like, 1 hour, I'm just going to do 1 hour, just this next hour, just these next 10 minutes, or just till lunchtime, whatever was manageable. And I broke it up. And so I guess for people who are feeling that, I would say, like, don't think about all that stuff. Don't think about the future. Just look at today and go like, what can I do today to make today better? Or one little thing I can do today that'll make my life slightly better. And it might be, I'm just going to eat right today, or I'm just going to go and walk around the block once today, or I'm just going to take a drive down to the park and do a walk or whatever. You just figure out like one thing, or, if you're unemployed, it might be a case of just going to send my CV off to one person today. You just make a little change that helps to do something a bit better. But it's tough. And I think the big thing is to recognize that, like you're doing with your mates, you've recognized it in someone, you've seen it, and you've seen where he's at. And that makes a massive difference. You think about your buddies, think about someone you haven't spoken to in a while. Just pick up the phone and give them a buzz and just be like, hey, man, how you doing? I was just thinking about you today. You good? Just organize a ride. Say, hey, you're going to come on a ride with us. We're going to go on Saturday. Let's go for a ride, after a ride, you just stay and have a beer with the guy. You have some fish and chips, whatever it is, you make that time just to spend with guys, just to kind of touch base. And that's what helps, because like I was saying, I had my family. Some guys don't have that, but there's people around, and there's lots of guys like you and me that are more than happy to sit and have a conversation with a guy and hang out with guys. And that makes a massive difference, just having someone to bounce something off.
Definitely. I think these days, the sort of stigma about men's, or just mental health in general, but particularly with men, it's disappearing. I think it is, because I certainly have more of my own friends are more open about it and talk. My mate, prime example, he's actively talking to me about it now, and I don't know if maybe that would have happened 10 years ago. What blokes are like.
I agree.
You just get on with it.
Yeah. 100%. And I think it is moving in the right direction. I'd agree with you 100%. I obviously, having my experience being paralyzed and all this sort of stuff, and I've had lots of crazy things happen in my life since that as well. And so I find people will talk to me about stuff, and it's like, it makes a difference, man. When you talk openly, like you'll see in the book, I spoke about catheters and stuff. I have to use catheters still now. Every day I have to use catheters. And it's like, it was one of those things that I was like, when I was writing the book, I was like, I don't really want to like talk about this sort of stuff. You know what I mean? And I didn't want to talk about other things as well. And when I was there, I thought, you know what? There is a guy out there who is suffering from prostate cancer, or he's suffering from some kind of challenge like this, and he's using catheters every day, and it sucks, and he's struggling, and it's mentally difficult, and that kind of stuff. And I thought, when I write this book, I'm going to write it like warts and all. And that's why, like when you asked me now, I said I'm an open book, and I am now. I'll talk about anything, that's personal or whatever, because that makes a difference when you are vulnerable and you kind of put it all out there and you say, hey, this is me, man. I got the good stuff. I got the bad stuff. There's all sorts. And when you're willing to do that, it helps other people who are struggling with stuff that they think they're the only one struggling with it. They're the only one who deals with this kind of issues. And so it's sometimes good to talk about it. I get terribly depressed sometimes, man. I get all in my headspace, and it just feels like, things are terrible and it's never going to be good. And you got to kind of take a step back. And sometimes it's nice to chat to some guys and, kind of bounce around the conversation, some ideas, and you realize, hey, man, we got a lot going for us here. We are going to be all right,
Definitely. It's weird. Like my life now is spent. I have a YouTube channel where I ride bikes and I just talk shit when I'm riding a bike. I go places, travel, meet people, all this sort of stuff. But as you said, I'm sort of like to think I'm on open book when I'm on that bike. I say what's in my head, and if you're having a bad day, you can't hide it. It comes across, doesn't it? And this podcast as well now, I get the opportunity to speak with people all over the world about all different manner of things. My sort of mantra is live your life. Something that my mom said to me before she died, and that sort of live your life mantra sent me on an incredible journey, and I get people on this podcast who I think represent that live your life sort of mantra, and just the conversations, it changed my life. It totally changed my life, and just that. The fact that I have these conversations with people, you get feedback from people that listen and watch the vids, and exactly what you just said. I get people getting in touch with me who say, I feel exactly the same way, or I've always wanted to do what you just did, where you went on that bike, and I'm never going to be able to do that because of X, Y, and Z, but thank you for sharing. And I've now managed to at least experience it to a degree through your vids, and it's awesome, isn't it? It's awesome to open that dialogue between people. And
it is, and it's fantastic. And I do a lot of corporate talks and things like that, now, and that's something where I get that type of feedback as well. And and when you get that feedback, you realize that you can look out at an audience of 200 people or whatever, and it just kind of feels like this is a corporate company, but it's not. It's 200 individuals, and each one of those people are feeling different things. There's someone there who's incredibly lonely. There's someone there who's really struggling with a physical condition. There's someone there who's a victim of abuse. There's someone there who is on the brink of financial, collapse. There's someone there who's in a terrible marriage, or there's, and they're all there. And you share a message about hope and about looking to the future or how to handle stuff. And then you get those messages back and you realize, like, man, it makes a difference when you're vulnerable, when you talk, and when you share experiences. It just, so I can agree with what you're saying, man. And so, for the guys out there that are struggling, man, there's lots of guys struggling. Reach out, man. Chat to guys, and you know what it's like. Hook up with guys and go on a bike ride, man. It makes a world of difference. You sit down when you're having a breakfast or you're in a lunch on a ride or something like that, and you start chatting, and you're like, you're talking about your kids and your finance and all stuff, and it just kind of like, it just helps you to get a bit of focus and realize that, hey, man, everyone's struggling with something,
Definitely, yeah. It's the best psychiatrist going, isn't it? 2 wheels and an open road, off you go. Yeah, brilliant.
Absolutely.
Right, Joey, the way this podcast works is I post up on my socials to say who the next guest is, and then people have an opportunity to post up questions of their own, which we can run through. Sometimes
Cool.
it's specific about you as a guest, and other times they're totally random and quite obscure, and just see where we go with it.
100%. Just before you go, I just want to say you just ended that last section by saying like it's the best psychiatrist being on the bike and stuff. And for me, I would say absolutely. To go out on a ride, and I love riding with guys, and sometimes I just love a good solo ride as well. And so yes, I would agree with that 100%. But I would also say that if you really are struggling, go and see a psychiatrist. Psychologist. There's no harm in that, man. It's often the best thing you can do. And so it's nothing to be like, do both.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. There's no stigma anymore about that sort of stuff, is there? So yeah. There's a reason these people are experts in their field, folks. So if you need the help, just pick up the phone, get on the internet, Google it, find your nearest one, drop my line, and go from there.
100%.
Right.
Fire away.
Okay. First one, we'll go across to the clan over on Patreon. So it's patreon.com/TeapotOne. First one, Brian McManus. Brian is one of the guys who would have been hassling you, a very short, drunk Irishman. He would have been hassling you with another chap called Mike at the ABR festival. Brian McManus, hello to you all. Joey, can I thank you for the time you took to have a good long chat when I met you at the ABR? There we go.
Love it.
Having listened to your book multiple times, it's hard to find a question, but I'll try. Question 1. Did you know that Bruce went round the world? I get loads of abuse for this. Cheers. Thanks, Brian. Question 2. What's next up on your YouTube channel? Yeah. What are you going to do on the YouTube?
Man, can I tell you, so what I did is I decided, man, I needed to do something different, man. I wanted to, I always I need a goal. I'm that kind of guy. I need a next thing, next thing. Yeah. And obviously, racing Dakar was that big goal. And so, racing Dakar and all the craziness, getting hit by the car and all that, and finishing and came home. And that was like, a big, massive tick. And then the opportunity came up to write the book. And so, boom, that became the next goal. And that was tough, man. Writing that book was, that was one of the hardest things I did. But, we got it. It was great. I was glad to get that done. And then I had the opportunity to race the Africa Eco Race with Lyndon, and suddenly that became the big goal. And then, obviously doing the speaking and stuff. I hate public speaking. Like I hate it. And so I totally, it used to be the thing that would stress me out. I can't, I'm fairly extroverted. So I'm good with making friends in a group, that kind of stuff. You put me on a stage or something, I'm like, that was the worst. Yeah. And so it was, I had to, that was a learned skill. So I read a lot of books on it, and I joined the Public Speakers Association. There was all of this kind of stuff. So that was kind of a learned skill to do that. And that became the next goal, whatever. And then, obviously I've got mates, like Lyndon Poskett and things where he's ridden around the world. And obviously like you, hearing a bit about your stuff, I looked up a bit of stuff about you. Super cool, by the way. And,
thanks, man. Cheers.
And I was like, for someone like me, that's exactly what I want to do. I want to get on my bike and I want to go. And I'm like, man, I'll see you in 5 years, That's a But like a lot of guys out there, I got bills to pay, man. I've got I'm married. I've got a family. I've got, 4 children. Well, they're not so much children anymore, but, I've had, these girls, growing up and all that sort of stuff. And so I'm not in a place where I can go like, hey man, see you around, and I'm going away. I can do like a week or 2 weeks tops. That's the only thing that works from for most of my life from a business point of view and a family point of view and all of that sort of stuff. And so the next thing I looked at now is I'm like, okay, I want to do some cool stuff. I need something else. I need the next thing. And so what I decided I want to do is I want to ride all over the world with local guys. I don't want to just ride through a country. I want to go there, hook up with the local guys, go ride bikes with the local guys, go eat the local food when they stop, go camp over or sleep over at local places. And that's what I want to do. And so I realized for me, where I'm in my life, I can do that because that's 4 days. That's a week. That's 3 days. I can do it like that. So I'm traveling around the world 4 days at a time. You know what I mean? Just doing these little things. And with the speaking business, I get, often speak in different countries, all over the world. And so what I've done is every time I speak in a different country, I will organize to get hold of the local guys, sometimes the local KTM dealer, and I'll say, hey man, I'll come and do a talk, at your dealership. I can get all the guys in. I'll do a cool talk about Dakar and all this sort of stuff. And then you guys take me for a ride. And everyone I've said has taken me up on it. And so I've been fortunate to ride in like all different countries. And so what I decided I was going to do, and I didn't do it from the beginning, but I decided, probably about 10 or 11 months ago, I said, no, I'm going to make videos now of everywhere I ride. And so he's asking about the YouTube channel. So I put out the first one, which was, I think, in Kenya, where I rode with the guys in Kenya, in Nairobi. They're super cool guys, really good. And then I put out the second one where I was in Jordan in the Middle East, and we rode all the way down, next to the Dead Sea, and we slept in the desert at a Bedouin camp, and then we came back the next day. It was incredible. And then I've done a few more since then, but we haven't got them edited and on YouTube. So that's why he's taking me to task about that, because there's two challenges. The first one is my filming is total crap. And the second thing is the young guy I've got, he's editing them. He's in his early 20s and he's got a job and he's trying to manage his job and have spare time. And he's in one of those places in his career where he's like super pushed for time. And so it's kind of like, that's the challenge. But I want to produce a lot more of that sort of stuff, because I want to show the guys how guys that ride adventure bikes and guys that ride dirt bikes and guys that ride pretty much any bikes, they're the same kind of guys.
100%.
We're in the world. The places I've ridden since is I rode in Egypt just a couple of weeks ago with the guys there, and we rode also down into the desert. I got a super cool video of doing a wheelie past a pyramid, and we slept down at this eco lodge in the desert, and there's this like oasis we went past, this super blue water in the middle of the desert, surrounded by dunes, and we saw fossils, and it was just amazing. The one in Egypt, I did another trip in Canada for 7 days with Matt, a mate of mine there. I just got to get around to just editing it and getting it all going. But it's, maybe over Christmas we'll have a chance. But I really want to put out more of that. That's something I really want to do. So yes, we will have more at some point with no time frame commitment from me.
Brilliant. That is something that I hope I sort of portray both in the podcast. I have two channels. I've got the podcast channel and then my sort of TeapotOne bike channel. And that's something I try to portray is get over to people that anywhere in the world, we're all, as you just said, we're all the same. And that includes non-bikers. Everyone is the same. It doesn't matter what language you speak, doesn't matter what religion you follow, what person thing you call a god or have your faith, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. Everyone is the same. There's a tiny percentage of arseholes out there, but you get them everywhere, don't you? You get them in every country. Most people, I say this time and time and time again, most people want to look after their family, they want to keep themselves safe, and they will help you if they can. And if that help is purely just talking to you or giving you some water, they'll do it. I was in Russia. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you carry on. I was just going to say, you're nailing it. Like when you travel, you see this, and that's why travel's so important, because travel kills all that bigotry and all those kind of perceptions you have of the world, man. You just got to get out there. So sorry, you were going to say Russia?
No, it's just, Russia to me was one of the biggest surprises when I traveled, in that I grew up, I'm similar age to you. I've just turned 46, and I've grown up thinking Russia was the enemy, like the Cold War and stuff. Russia was the enemy. And they're not. When you get there and you meet Russians, they're a little bit standoffish to begin with, because, they hear the same things about us that we hear about them. So once you get over that, literally, if they're still talking to you in a couple of minutes, they open their lives to you. And I've had Russians literally like do the whole tear a bread in half. There's half for you, half for me. I've had Russians invite me back to their homes where I don't speak Russian, they don't speak English, but they've invited me back to their home, put me up for the night. We've managed to have conversations even though we don't speak the same language. And I've had that all over the world. And people are good. People are good.
You're so right, man. I had a little chuckle to myself when I was in Jordan. And the group that I was with, we had it all around the campfire, and they made this thing called a mandi, where they like cook all the food underground in a big oil drum. It was super cool. But we're all sitting around the fire and things, and we're eating and stuff, and they're pouring like tea. And they got like this guy playing his little guitar thing, and another guy on a little keyboard type thing. And the guys are dancing and all this sort of stuff. And I just thought, man, how cool are these guys? This is just super cool. Middle of the desert. They're just kind of hanging out and jamming away here and stuff. And I had a little bit chuckle because there was no alcohol there at all. And they're just, they're having this super good time. Now, if you go I know you guys are very similar to us, where it's like, you're not going to go to a bike event in the UK where there's no alcohol. It doesn't happen, And it's kind of in South Africa, we're big on braaiing, so it's like big steaks on fires and stuff, and beer. And that's what all the guys do. And after a good ride, everyone's hanging out and eating meat. And it was just kind of like, it was so different, but so the same, these kind of guys. And they were just super, man, generous. You know how generous people are when you travel. They just want to help you. And no, man, you've felt it. I've felt it. And I hope the listeners out there will get out there and feel of that, man. Just, you'll see it all over the world.
When you said there's no alcohol, I thought you were going to go down the lines of like Morocco. Morocco is a dry country, isn't it? There's no alcohol, but they brew their own beer. So wherever you go, you can get beer wherever you go. Yeah.
Maybe a few guys had something under their jacket, but I didn't see
them. I always take it as a measure as to whether or not the locals like me or not when I go, because I've been to Morocco a few times now, and it's whether or not, if you ask for a beer and they go, no, there's no beer. Normally, they'll sort of stand there for a minute or two, and then beer will appear, or they'll come and see you and go, we can get beer if you still want beer. If they don't do that, then I'm like, okay, they don't like me. All right, fair enough. Right, nice one, Brian. Cheers for that question, pal. Next one, John Powell. Hi, both. I walked past the tent at the ABR festival just after Joey started speaking. I went in, sat down with the wife, and was enthralled. Joey, is it true that you measure the success of your speeches by the number of grown men you see wiping the tears away? I had to tell the wife that it was very dusty in that marquee despite the rain outside. It was an inspiring journey, wonderfully told, with kudos to your wife and kids for letting it happen. All right, so John's not got a question. He just wants to say thank you.
Oh, that's awesome, man. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, nice one. Next one, Colonel Bullen. Hi, Bruce and Joey. Great to have Joey on the podcast. Joey, you're a true inspiration. As a fellow South African, I see you as a national treasure. Question 1. Joey, now that your racing days are over, have you considered coming over to the dark side and getting a GS?
I'll never be that old. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just ragging. Oh man, I tell you what, I remember when I was younger and I looked at adventure bikes and I was like, oh man, what are you going to do on those big pigs, man? What a waste of time,
Yep.
And I mean, I just you kind of see the whole world different as you go through your life. I remember I just wanted like high performance, And now as I've got older, I realized that there's so much more to it. And now, honestly, like, I don't care what you ride, man. It doesn't matter at all. You just want to get out there and ride. And we've all got our own personal tastes of what we enjoy. But I certainly now, I don't see everything as racing. I see it as like this rich life that you just want to take spoonfuls and shove it in your mouth. And you kind of see this time ticking away when it's all going to be over. So you got to do as much as you can. So no, man, I got to say my favorite bike at the moment is I got a KTM 890R, and that adventure bike, man, I just love it. I was riding it yesterday. I was out in the Magaliesberg Mountains here, and just to ride and just to be out there, just incredible. No, I love it. So I love adventure bikes. I'm a KTM boy, but as long as you're on a bike and you're out there riding, nothing wrong.
I get the KTM thing. I've got to say, I've got a GS now. Obviously I was a Jigsaw boy through and through. I did my trip on the Jigsaw, and then I came back and I threw my leg over like the modern adventure bikes, and I was just like, Oh,
this is
okay.
it.
I kind of, I understand it all now. Yeah. So I'm the same. You know, I've been through that 11, 12, 13,000 revs, revving the bollocks off of it all the time.
Yeah.
And you need the high speed to get the thrill. I totally get that. But yeah, those days are past. However, I have thrown my leg over a number of KTMs, you know, and oh man, I get it. I totally get it. The problem is every time I've had one of the press bikes from KTM, there's always been electrical issues. And it's never, yeah. So everyone always says, don't they, about KTMs, they always break down. Well, I like to keep an open mind, but just about everyone I've had has had an electrical issue. Not always stop me riding.
Do you think it might be a problem with you?
Yeah, there is a common denominator there.
I was going to say, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's also like you'll see when you go to different countries, it's different types of riding as well. Like to be honest, I'm relatively new to the adventure bike market. You know, coming from more of an off road. You know, I was always 300 2-strokes and 500 4-strokes. Those are the bikes I loved, and I raced and things. And at Dakar, we raced up to a 450, so we were on 450s there, and then I literally rode the first adventure bike in my life just about a month before I raced Dakar. First time ever. And I went on a trip with a buddy just for the day. And man, that thing scared me. It was just so big and heavy. It was an 1190 and it was crazy. And then when I came back from Dakar, they asked me to help at a KTM launch when they launched the 1290 and the 1090. Yeah. And then they gave me some press guys and they were like, cool, go out on this trip. And I'm like, I can't even ride this. But I've just come back from Dakar and I'm intimidated by bikes. So there was certainly that. But I've noticed since then that I've started to get more and more. And believe it or not, this 890R that I have now, I got that about 3 weeks ago, and that's the first adventure bike I've owned. So I'm not I'm still new to the adventure bike market, but I've seen as I've traveled around the world that the markets are very different. You know, when I was at that ABR festival the other day, I've never seen that many adventure bikes in my life. I was it was just tons and tons and tons. In South Africa, when we see like we call them it's the S models, like an 890 Adventure, you know, the standard Adventure. You get the standard Adventure and the Adventure R. So the standard Adventure is more road kind of thing.
Road focused,
I look at a bike like that and I'm like, why do they manufacture that? Like, who's going to buy that? That's, of course you want the R, you want the off-road performance, you know, it makes no sense because where we live here, it's dirt roads. If you're going to go on adventure bikes, you get off the tar and you ride for literally thousands of kilometers on dirt. You can go up through Mozambique, you can go through Zimbabwe or Botswana, Namibia, all the way down to the Cape, Swaziland, Lesotho, all these places. And so like almost nobody here buys an S model. But then when I've ridden in Europe and I've ridden through Austria and Slovenia and these kind of places, and now I'm like, and you see guys by the thousands and everything's tarred and it's all these tarred twisties and stuff. And you run an adventure bike that you can sit up a bit and have a nice comfortable thing and you can ride for hundreds of kilometers and you can have your luggage on the back and that kind of stuff. And then I was like, now I see, you know, what it's like. And as you travel around, you'll see different markets like that. And so I think there's definitely markets for big GSs and that kind of stuff. Absolutely. You know, some of those trips, I mean, those just, they make it a beautiful, comfortable ride. But I do think there's a big pull in certain places, and especially here in South Africa, where we're definitely going smaller bikes, you know, more agile, smaller motors. It's kind of going that way, you know, here.
Yeah. Here in the UK, the adventure bike market is massive. There's almost no sports bike market anymore, which is such a shame. You know, a prime example, Suzuki, they're not making the GSX-R anymore. The GSX-R 1000, this is the last year that's ever going to be made. And that's like an iconic bike for road riders.
I saw they just pulled out of, or they're ending
GP.
with GP as well, Yeah,
I know. I mean, it's such a shame. But then everyone who's grown up through the sports bikes, they're all similar sort of ages to us. And here in the UK, you know, everyone's getting that little bit older. And now these big modern adventure bikes, they've got amazing performance, road performance. You know what I mean? For road legal-ish speeds, fucking brilliant because the roads in the
They'll
UK.
smoke a lot of those sports bikes. Yeah,
they do.
Yeah.
I take my GS to the track, and all right, there's plenty of people that will spank me, but I can still go around the outside of some sports bikes, and you're like, this is such fun. It's great giggle, you know? It's awesome. Yeah. Anyway, right. Okay. Cheers for that one, Carnot. Oh, he said he's got a second question. Apologies.
Cool.
What local rugby team do you support? A man like you must be a Blue Bulls supporter. You're Joburg, aren't you? Is that right?
You know what? I got to be honest. Yeah, it's Blue Bulls. Yeah, that's right. I got to be honest, man. I'm actually I almost don't watch any sport at all. I'm just not a guy who watches sports. I know. I don't know. I got a lot of mates who all enjoy the rugby. I'll watch the Springboks play every now and again. I was actually at a Springbok game, a couple of months back when they played New Zealand at the big stadium here, which was pretty cool. But I'm not I just don't really watch sports, to be honest. So I don't really have a team. I don't have a soccer team. I don't have a rugby team. I'd rather just go ride my bike.
Is that allowed in South Africa?
No, don't tell my friends. No.
Yeah. Next thing you'll be saying you can't barbecue. Be like, what?
No. There we go. No, we got lots of Brian, and I support Brad Binder. There we go.
Good lad. Sorry, Colonel's actually got a third question. Here we go. Have you done any work with the Springboks as a motivational speaker or handing over shirts before a test match?
Oh man, you know what? I've got a friend who's a speaker who did something with them, and I thought, oh man, I would love to go and do a talk for the guys, you know what I mean? Yeah. Just to their functions or something, to just go tell the story and things. So I haven't. I was actually, I spoke at the same conference as, see how little I know about rugby now. It was the Springbok rugby captain from when they won in 2009. What was his name, man? Can't remember now. I'll remember it as soon as we finish this. But what was his name? Francois Pino was the guy in 95, and then he was the one in 2009 when we won it then.
The 90s were my sort of era when I played, and I don't know anybody anymore.
Okay, well, anyway, I spoke with him at the same conference, but I spoke like a long time before him, like several hours. So he didn't hear my talk, but I heard his talk, if that makes sense. Because I stayed around to listen to the other speakers, kind of thing.
Gotcha.
And it was, and so I sat next to him, and we sat and we chatted and stuff for a while, which was pretty cool. And I actually gave him a copy of my book. But I don't know if you read it or anything like that. But I hope you did. And you never know. Maybe one day. I would love that. That would be super cool. I'd really like. I've been able to speak at a lot of other sporting events and stuff. Mainly for clubs and teams and stuff about to do big tournaments. And I kind of tell them the story and get them all like kind of ramped up to be like, hey, no matter how bad it seems, you can still come back. Especially with marathon type stuff and triathlon type stuff. It's all that same sort of mindset. So I've done a few of those, but yeah. Maybe one day the Springboks. That'd be super cool. I'd dig that. If I can remember the name.
How did you get into it? How did you get into the whole public speaking?
You know what it was? I came back from Dakar, and then I was asked by a buddy of mine to speak at the KTM dealership. Tell them the story. So I went to the KTM dealership and I took a few photos and stuff, and I just kind of chatted with the guys and I told them the story and that kind of stuff. And then I was asked, other KTM dealers like, hey, would you come to us? And so KTM did so much to help me to get to Dakar and so much support and stuff. So what I did is then I went and did all those talks, and then they started, you get guys at the talk saying, hey man, would you come to my company and come and tell the story to my team? And I was like, oh, okay, cool. So, and they were like, how much do you charge? And I'm like, I'm not going to charge you, I'll come do it, no problems, And they're like, no, we've got to pay you. So then I did a couple of those. And then the guys sat me down. They said, you realize that with corporate conferences and stuff, they get speakers like this all the time. This is a thing. Now, I don't come from a corporate background. I've been fixing people's swimming pools and trenches and fixing plumbing in the ground full of mud and that sort of stuff for years. So I didn't know that whole world existed. And so then I started to get asked. And at first, like my videos aren't playing. I've got an old, 10-year-old laptop I'm trying to use.
It's a nightmare, isn't it?
Oh man, it was a mess. It was a total mess. I'm surprised I was invited back to some of those places. But then what I did is then I joined the Public Speakers Association of South Africa, and I thought, let me find out about this. And they asked me to then present to them, a couple months into me joining this, and I started to learn a little bit about it, and I'd put a little talk together, and I'm working on it. And then I was actually a backup speaker for another guy who didn't pitch. And so they were like, okay, well, Joey will do it because our real guy isn't here, And I did the talk for a room of probably about, I don't know, 25 or 30 professional speakers. And now I've got to do my talk to them, which was like the most intimidating thing.
Yeah, no pressure.
Oh man, it was really like deep end. And they gave me a standing ovation. And the one guy who was like a really successful guy, Steph is his name, and they came up to, a lot of guys came to afterwards, and they all we chatting and stuff. And he said, "Hey, come to my house tomorrow, 10 o'clock. Can you come?" I'm like, "I'm there, man." And I went to his house, and he's one of those guys that's like he just talks straight, and I love guys like that. Yeah, and he was like, "Right. This you did good. This you really sucked. You got to change that. You got to do this. This is what you need." And I literally just sat there, just taking notes. And he kind of like became a bit of a mentor for me. And he helped me to just fine tune and just get to a place where I had a proper professional package. And then along with that, then it's starting to get like websites right and promo videos and bios. And I'm at the stage now where I've got it all, and I've done quite a lot of, really good corporate events and stuff. And I do, anything between probably 5 and 10 a month now. So it's,
wow.
It's really just, grown and grown. And I've been able to speak in, all over the world. I've literally spoken on every continent now. It's apart from Antarctica, we'll work on that one. But it's been amazing. And it's something that I want to grow more and more and more and more. That's certainly like, it's like, I feel like for the first time in my life, I'm in my 40s, and I found my career. I found the thing that I love doing, that I can also get paid to do. When you get that, like where it just comes together, and I get to travel, and I get to ride with guys around the world. And so it's suddenly just, I found my thing in my 40s. I finally found it, So yeah, that's what we're doing now.
Wow. And it's quite... It's interesting that the sort of synergy there of possibly the worst thing that could ever happen to you in life has sent you on a journey, which has now led you to the position where you feel happier than ever.
Ah, man, can I tell you really that? And it's I feel, I don't have any tertiary education or anything like that. I finished school, and it was a case of like, I need money. I got to work. And so I did manual labor jobs and that kind of stuff. And then it kind of like your life just kind of goes. And I didn't really have any direction, with a career. And this is what I wanted. I never knew, and so I just kind of hacked my way along. And so to have this now at, sort of this late stage of the game or whatever, I'm stoked I found it. And it's a challenge still. It's still, difficult at times, and it still puts me out of my comfort zone and stuff, but it's exciting, and I'm loving it. I'm loving the journey.
Mega. Awesome. Right, Colonel, that's all from Colonel. He says, keep up the good work, gents. Cheers. Thank you, Colonel.
Awesome. Cheers.
Next one, Charlie Callard. Evening, gents. Hope you're both well. All good. Thank you, Charlie. So, now with Halloween and bonfire night done and dusted, the Christmas jingles and sparkles are starting to come out. The question on everybody's mind is, Brussels sprouts at Christmas, yes or no?
Yes, you got to have them.
You have to have them. Are you a fan of sprouts, though?
Yeah, you know what? I was actually in the States a little while ago, and we had, I haven't had Brussels sprouts in a long, long time. And we're in the States, and we're in Utah with a buddy of mine. And we were up in the mountains at like this, like the ski resort. It was in the summer though. And they did these Brussels sprouts, and they were like, I want to say they were like cooked in like honey with almonds or something like that. It was amazing. Like I've never had them like that before. Like the normal Christmas thing, you boil them up, you chuck them out,
mush,
get them done. But no, they were amazing. So maybe we should learn to cook them different. But
experiment a bit.
They were good.
And I genuinely
watching this, they can tell us what they do. But it was definitely the best ever.
I had no idea that that anywhere else in the planet like ate Brussels sprouts. I thought it was I just thought it was a British thing that we sort of had to do at Christmas.
Yeah, I think that's what I thought as well. I mean, my parents, I was actually born in Birmingham. I don't know if you know that.
No, I didn't know.
Yeah, I was born. So I'm actually my folks were from Birmingham as well. I was born there, and then when I was 5, my dad moved to South Africa to for employment, and so I grew up in South Africa from the age of 5. So South Africa is what I know. You know, I consider myself South African, but yeah. So we growing up, obviously. All of our family traditions are very, you know, we're still a very British family. And my wife, Meredith, she moved to South Africa when she was 12. So her family's also all British. So all the Brussels sprouts and all that sort of stuff, I get that, you know, kind of thing because of that. But gotcha. Yeah, it's not I wouldn't say it's a big thing here. You'd have to hunt around, you know, quite a number of shops before you found them.
Yeah, I'll bet. You're not going to put them on the barbie, on the braai.
Yeah, that's it. You'll get shot.
Yeah. Cheers for that one, Charlie. Next one, Lee Vigor. Hello to you both. Hope you're well. A big thank you to Joey for inspiring me to try harder when I most needed it. What or who was your inspiration to try harder? That's Lee's actually, he's a motorbike tester. He's a professional test rider for Triumph, but he's also worked for a lot of other manufacturers. He's been on this podcast before, and awesome. He almost got paralyzed in a bad bike accident on the job, actually. So that's a little bit of his background. So what or who was your inspiration to try harder?
Man, you know, I can tell you, I've been asked that, you know, a number of times over the years, you know, like who's that guy, and I don't really have anyone, if I'm being honest. But I would certainly say over the years, it's been different things, different people, different stuff, where I've thought, hey, that's cool, man. I dig that. I want to be more like that. You know what I mean? Like I mentioned Steph just now, you know, from a speaker point of view, I loved how he was brutally honest. And he was like, you know, so there was like, you know, I wouldn't say he's my hero or anything like that, but I would say there's characteristics about him that I'm like, I like that about him, or I like that. And there's been other guys, you know, whether it's riders or something. There was one rider years ago, and he finished a race on a destroyed tire. It was the Botswana desert race, and I remember watching that. I was there at the finish, and I watched him come in, and I was like, that's cool. I dig that. I want to be that guy, the guy who doesn't quit when he has something go crazy wrong like that. And then, you know, other stuff where you see someone who's, who takes the time and like they treat somebody who has nothing to offer them really nice. You know, they treat them really well. And you see someone do that. I had another guy, we were at a petrol station, and just the way he spoke to the people there who were like, you know, just entry-level workers or whatever. And I just saw that, and I remember thinking, I want to treat people like that. Like, that's cool. And so I think it's like different characteristics of different people through the years. But I wouldn't say there's like one person that's like, yeah, that's who I want to be like.
Have you always had this drive then, this inner drive, which you plainly have to set your sights, to attain things, to be the best you can possibly be? Have you always had that?
No, I would say not. I think, you know, I really enjoy the subject now of like resilience and mindset and self-talk and this kind of stuff. And I'm trying, you know, to understand it more and more. But one of the things that comes out of psychology and things is that nobody is born resilient, but we are born with the ability to be resilient. And we develop that by self-reflecting, so kind of like coming out of our body and like looking at how we're responding to a situation, almost like a third person, and we change we change mentally how we view a challenge. We change emotionally in terms of how we feel about something. You know, we say, let's feel a different way about this, and then we change how we respond to something. And when we do those three things in those three different areas, And then we overcome that. We just became a little more resilient. And when the next thing comes along, you get a little more resilient. So I think you grow when you change the way you do it. You might remember in the book, I spoke about that race I did as a kid, that running race. I don't know if you remember it, but I did a running race where I quit the race. It was a 1,200 meter. I had stitch. I was sucking air, and on the back straight behind all the field events and stuff, I pulled off the track and I quit. And I remember my teacher just looked at me and he was like, "And now?" And I was like, "Oh no, I'm just sore, and this." And he looked at me and he just shook his head and he was like, "Man," and I was gutted, man. I never, I just felt like, he's such a freaking loser, and it was something that kind of stuck with me. And so at that point in time, I certainly wasn't resilient. I certainly wasn't that guy. It wasn't something I was born with. But I can tell you now, when that car went over my bike at Dakar, and I limped along in that desert without an exhaust and a foot peg on a bent frame, and just ticking away meter after meter, knowing I'm out the race, but I kept going no matter what until I found that other bike. I was clearly a different guy there than I was as that 11-year-old kid. And I think that's and so, but I'm the same person. But I think over the years, you learn to be resilient. As you step out of that comfort zone, as you get out of that rut, and you push yourself a bit, you grow as a person in resilience, or in your ability to handle things. And so I think it's something that it's a learned thing to be resilient, to be the kind of person who pushes through difficult times. It's something that you can literally teach yourself if you decide that's what you want.
And I think life presents these opportunities for you to learn all the time, doesn't it? And it's a question of identifying those opportunities, because they don't always feel like opportunities, do they? They often feel like the worst thing that you've ever been through. And I do wonder sometimes, are some people simply not, they just don't have it in them to recognize that opportunity, and they just get all enveloped by whatever situation they're in, and they don't have the ability to sort of take a step back and go, okay, right, what is that meant to me? How do I deal with this? How do I get over it, round it, under it, whatever it is? And the reason I say is one of the biggest things that have happened to me, I think, in my life that really did change me massively was early on in my world trip. I had a really bad time crossing Mauritania. It was just bad timing. The place was getting flooded with the Boko Haram Islamic fundamentalists. So they the government flooded the area with police, and the police just robbed me every single day. And I got taken by a gang at the Rosso border. And I remember I sort of got through that, got to Dakar, and I made the decision to come back to London, because I was like, I've got X amount of money left. And I thought, Jesus, I've got Nigeria, the Congo, DRC, I've got all this to go. And I thought, if it's been this bad to get through Mauritania, what's it like going to be like down there? Because all I'd heard was the horror stories and just how bad things would be. So I made that decision to head back to London, and by hook or by crook, fate presented a corporate sponsor who approached me and basically gave me half of what I needed to get back on the road again financially. So I got that opportunity to go. And a bit of a backstory to my trip is, before my mum died, she made me promise that I would do this trip. I would travel the world on a motorbike. It's something I'd always wanted to do. And she said, don't get to my stage where you face the end. You regret what you've not done. Look after those that you love, but live your life. And that's where the live your life thing comes from with me. So, when I made that decision to come back to London, I was in such a low. I just thought, I'm a fucking failure. I've let my mum down. I've let all my family down. It's just, Jesus, it's gone. And then I had the opportunity to go again. And I remember making this decision in my head of you just don't give up now. Whatever happens, you either come back with the bike, or pulling the bike, dragging the bike, carrying it on your back, or you come back in a box. For me, it was that simple. It was like, I'm going, and nothing is stopping me now.
Yep.
And the whole trip opened up for me. My whole mindset changed, and I remember feeling threatened the whole way through Mauritania, because I was treating, as a copper, my risk assessment was through the roof. You know, people pointing AKs at me and robbing me, and I was just like, holy fuck. After that, I didn't have that suspicion in me as a person anymore, because I was just like, I'm just going. Let's just see what the world throws at me. And as luck would have it, none of that ever presented itself. You know, like I didn't get robbed ever again on the trip. And yeah, people had guns in various places, but they were just, you know, they were just chatting. It's just how they do things in different countries. It was nothing to worry about. And that stuck with me now to this day. Never give up. You know, if there's something you really want to do, and it's not a question of I fancy doing that. It's something that has gripped your very soul. I need to do this.
Yeah,
you can make that happen, but you just never give up. Eh?
Man,
you do whatever you need to.
Exactly, and I love the way you're talking, because it's like you talk about that goal, that dream, and if it scares you. Yeah. But it gives you goosebumps at the same time. That's a sure sign that that's the thing you got to do. And
I just did it. As soon as you said that, I just did it to me.
I love it. But I remember, you know, I've seen lots and lots of guys try to raise money for Dakar. Mm-hmm. You know, and guys are like, hey, I want to go to Dakar, and they'd be like, say, for instance, now they'd say like 2024 or 2025 or that kind of stuff. And they're like, yeah, I'm hoping, you know, if I get enough money, then I'm going to do this and that and stuff. And I'm just like, what are you doing? You know, you can't do it like that. So what I did is I used literally my life savings, you know, our family's life savings, to go to Morocco to race the Mazuga Rally. I came back from Mazuga. I had nothing. But I had an entry for Dakar in my hand, and I got 6 months to go. And I went like this. I went, here's my entry. I'm going to Dakar. Would you like to support me? Mm-hmm. And that made a massive difference between saying, I'd like to go to Dakar if I get enough money. I said, I'm going. Are you coming with me? Mm-hmm. And that was the difference. And I do believe that when you commit to something fully and you are all in, man, the whole world will get on board with you. If you're wishy-washy, it's not going to happen. But if you say, I'm going, are you coming? Boom. Then that's when the magic happens.
I had Lyndon on here, Lyndon Poskett, a few months ago, and we were chatting, and I was just saying how I found this year has been the toughest of the last 2 or 3 for me, because I went from being full-time police officer to, just before COVID hit in, I resigned and I went full-time on YouTube. And I found this year being really quite tough. And I remember thinking to myself, can I do this? You know, like, is this me now? Is this a career? Can I do it? And I remember him saying, no, you can't do that. The universe listens. You've got to be positive about what you're doing. You've got to put it out there that you're positive about what you're doing, because that affects everything. And at that time, I was thinking along the same lines, but also thinking, you know, is it just being wishy-washy? It's 100% true. If you have that positive mindset, then you deal with everything in such a different manner to if you're feeling negative about things. And I think people react to you differently as well.
They want to be on board with someone who's positive, who's going places. Yeah. We all know that you're like the sum of those, 5 or 6 people that you hang out with, you know, and it's true, man. When you are around people like that who are going, like Lyndon's one of those guys, man. He stayed here in my home for several months when he was here. We couldn't get rid of him, you know. No, I'm just kidding. But it was, but he sees life different. He sees the whole world different, you know. And he's a guy that takes opportunities and goes with it. And it's like when you're around people like that, you want to do better. Like even just sitting here chatting to you, it's like I want to go travel. I want to be like, hey man, come with me, let's go, you know. And it's like that's what it does when you're with people that are doing things, that want to do things, it changes, you know. And that's why it's like, just wherever, you know, the guys who are watching this, wherever you're at right now, just like I guess the best way I could put it is, if I said to you now, all right, you need to get on your bike and you need to ride to Magadan. You know, you could do it. If I gave you the time, the money, you'd get on the bike and you'd go. If I say that to some corporate guy who's sitting in his office and I said, all right, I'm going to teach you how to ride a motorcycle, and you're going to ride all the way from here to Scotland. He'd be like, there's no ways. I can't. It's never. You know, and I know we could get that guy to Magadan. If he had the right mindset, no matter where he is, he could never ridden a bike before. You know, and I know within a year or two, we could get that guy and we could get him all the way to Magadan if he had the right mindset. But he doesn't know that. Does that make sense? And for the guys watching, you just got to figure out just the next step. Just you don't have to do the big thing. Just do the next thing.
So what you said earlier, wasn't it, when I was asking you for advice about my friend, you break things down into attainable, achievable chunks, steps. So push yourself, but as you said, be realistic. And I don't want to. I'm going to enter the Olympics tomorrow in the high jump, and you can't even run to your door at the moment. You've got to break it down into little steps, haven't you?
Well, you know that there's probably, like, you go to an event like the ABR Festival, you know that like probably 95% of the guys there all would love to do a trip around the world like you or Lyndon have done. 100%. And all these guys, but how many of those guys have never even ridden to Scotland, for argument's sake, or gone around the Isle of Man or whatever it is? Something that's way more achievable. And so it's like, if you look at everyone's history, who's done the trips like you've done or Lyndon's done, or the races and things like the stuff that I've done, it's a case of I didn't start with Dakar. You know what I mean? The first race I did was a little local race up the road, and I went up there and I'm like, what am I doing at this race? I don't belong here. And I felt like all really shy in the pits, and I'm like, I'm with a couple of mates. I'm like, just tell me where to go. I don't know where to go to riders briefing and this and that. And I was way out of my comfort zone. And then you click away a few years, and I finished Dakar. And so it's like, just do what you can now. For someone watching this who doesn't have a motorcycle, go get your first lesson this week. For someone who does, then do your first little trip. It's a day trip. It's a morning trip. Going to the countryside, learn to use a GPS. You know what I mean? There's so many little steps, on the way there. Just get busy.
Absolutely. It's what I love about the biking community, and this little thing I have growing up round about me now called the Clan over on Patreon. It's a group of awesome people, like they support me, but what I see is that they're supporting each other, because we do meetups throughout the year, and I get people turning up at these meetups who all they've ever done, they might have been riding 30, 40 years, but all they've ever done is go from their home to a calf and back home, and they'll do it, on a Sunday when the weather's nice, and they're perfectly happy. That's they do with biking, and all of a sudden a switch goes, and they make the decision to come along to one of our meetups, and they turn up, and all of a sudden they're meeting other people who've been away, and maybe they've not ridden around the world, but as you said, they've ridden to Wales, or they've ridden up to the Peak District, or into Scotland, or all of these places, and you can see it starts the cogs turning in some folk, and the next thing you know, all these folk have just been like, tell you what, we're doing a trip to Wales next month. Do you fancy coming with me? And they exchange numbers, and all of a sudden these people, their whole world is opened up to them because of a bike and just meeting like-minded people. And all of a sudden, like, the next time you meet them, they're like, I've booked it. I've booked the ferry. We're going to the Picos in Spain. I'm going. And you're just like, that's fucking awesome. It's mega. Brilliant. Brilliant what two wheels can lead to.
And you need those guys you need those crazy dreamers like yourself, that it just has that knock-on effect. You know what I mean? And it makes a guy want to go just a little bit further. And so, 100%. It's like that whole thing I was saying earlier, the people you hang out with, determines what you do. I always compare it to, like, when I grew up. I remember I was saying earlier, I didn't really have any career path and stuff. If you ask me now what I'd want to do as a career, I could think of 10 things that I would be passionate about to chase that career, because I've met people in those careers throughout my life. But in school, you sit in that school back in the 80s, and it's like, they're like, hey, these are the things you can be an accountant, or you can be a teacher, or you can be and they would kind of give you these all sort of basic everyday careers. no one ever told me that you could go to Tanzania and you could hunt poachers. No one ever told me you could be a commercial diver on a rig and offshore. No one ever told me all these these cool crazy careers existed. Then I would have been like, yeah, man, that's what I want to do. And so it's the same with this. When you go to the cafe on the bike every day, yeah, you enjoy it and it's cool and it is. And for some guys, that's great. But you start hanging around guys who have done a bit more, and man, you're going to get those juices flowing, and before you know, you're taking a big bite.
It's infectious, isn't it? Awesome. Love it. It's made me want to go to the calf now. I want to get on my bike and go.
And on that, by the way, whenever I'm over there next, man, let's make a plan. I would love to come and ride with your group, with the clan, and I'll come do a talk for the guys. We'll do that. So come on that next time.
You're on. Joey, thank you so much. You're on. 100%. You're on. Right. Let's make it happen. Cheers for that one, Lee. Next one is Pete English. Now, Pete has a bit of a reputation for his questions. They can be quite obscure. So, right, here we go. Hi, guys. Hope you're both fit and well. Fantastic you have Joey on. What an inspirational guy. Fact. Scientists have now discovered that reincarnation is a real thing.
Here we go.
Okay, yeah. Throughout our life, we accumulate good guy points, which then determine what, where, and when we come back. My question, how many points do you think you've earned? Who or what would you hope to be? Where would you like to return? And when in time would you want it to be? Might need something stronger than booze for this one.
I was going to say, is he one of these guys that isn't diagnosed yet? I'm just kidding, mate. Oh man, I don't know, man. I think, man, I guess, you try to be a good guy. I think, I make a lot of mistakes. I do a lot of things. Geez, I don't know. I think it's hard to get all those points all the time. But if I did get to choose what I'd come back as, I think I'd like to be one of those guys that got to explore the world before the world was explored. I'd like to be one of those guys getting on a ship, pulling out of somewhere and just going to some crazy places, being the guys who, landed in the Amazon first, or being the guys that, came down, through Africa, or, these kind of things when the world was still so separated, when it was still a world where we didn't know everybody else existed. I think I'd love to be landing in strange lands and, just going in and just, you don't know what to expect, all sorts of crazy animals and different people. And I think, I'd like to be an explorer back in the day.
You can't comprehend what that must have been like back in the day, because like even today, where everything is on your phone at the touch of a button, you can Google it, you can go on Google Maps and you can look at the road or the track where you're planning to go. So you've got an idea as to what it looks like. You can research places that you're going to. I mean, back in the day when people were exploring new worlds, for starters, they thought the Earth was bloody flat. Yeah, these people still got on a boat and just headed off into the distance. That's insane, isn't it? Incredible.
I was saying to my kids the other day, I said, you can't judge us. You have to remember that our knowledge of the world as kids was what people around told us. There was no way for us to fact check or anything like that. Like you don't understand. We lived in a whole different world. So you can't judge us for the decisions we made and the things we did. We were a product of the people around us. And so, 100%, man. Those would have been some crazy times.
I remember starting uni in 93 and them going on about, we have this new thing, email. And I was like, what is email? And it's on the internet. And I was like, what's the internet? And it was like, the very first browsers and everything. Was it Netscape Navigator or something? And I just remember looking at it and thinking, it was so slow and it was so clunky. What's this?
The point,
never bother with that. Didn't even have a mobile phone in those days. Yeah. So crikey, look at what we have now. Wow.
Different world.
I'm at the other time scale, I think, in that I would like to come back in the future when we have the ability to travel out into the stars. So I'd like the same sort of thing, but in the future, like heading
Okay,
off out into
gotcha.
the cosmos.
Yeah.
I would love to be able to do that.
That's pretty cool. I think that as well.
When you listen to people like Brian, have you listened to Professor Brian Cox? He's
Yes.
when you
Yeah.
hear him talk and sort of explain in his rudimentary a fashion as he possibly can what the universe is like and the scale of the universe, it still just blows my mind. I'm like, how is this real? It's phenomenal.
We just got to look after this one planet. Let's get it right, man. Come on.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, cheers for that one, Pete. That is us done with the clan questions. There's a couple over on Instagram, and I think there's one on Facebook. Are you okay for them, Joey?
Yeah, fire away. Yeah? Keep going. All good.
Awesome, mate. Thank you very much. Excuse me for interrupting, folks, but it is sponsor shout-out time. And this month, we have a new sponsor. Welcome to Travel Escapes. Now, I've got some blurb to read out. Travel and Escape is an independent travel agent. They are ABTA and ATOL protected for your peace of mind. For hassle-free, tailor-made holidays from staycations, day experiences, cruises, luxury holidays, and so much more. You can find them all on the socials or book directly online using the link. Now, folks, I'll leave all their socials and a website link down below. Make sure you check that out. If you're watching a video, have a look at the description. If you're listening to the podcast, check out the show notes. There will be hyperlinks there. Make sure you give them a click, a follow, a like. And if you're looking for a little break for you and the loved one, you and the family, you and whoever, maybe just you yourself, make sure you check out Travel and Escape. We are also sponsored by Innov. Now, Innov have been a long-term sponsor for the main channel over on TeapotOne, but they're also helping out and sponsoring the podcast. So a massive thanks to them. Innov specialise in motorcycle dash cam systems. They do the front and rear dual camera K series. That's the K3 and the flagship K5. K3 is 1080 front and rear. K5 is 4K at the front, 1080 at the rear. The K5 also has much faster Wi-Fi. So both the K3 and K5 utilize a mobile app where you can view your footage, you can change settings, you can share on socials, you can have a look at your GPS overlay, all this sort of stuff. Both do the job if you just simply want a dash cam. If you ever get involved in an accident, the first thing your insurance is going to ask is there any CCTV? And obviously, if you have one of these systems fitted, then you can turn around and go, yes, I do. And if you head to innov.co.uk and use the code TEAPOT, you'll get 5% off of all Innov and Technologic cameras. So a massive thanks to Innov. And lastly for this one, we're also sponsored by Ultimate Add-ons. Now, Ultimate Add-ons, they make dustproof and shockproof mobile phone cases and action camera mounts. They will fit just about every single bike out there. Me personally, I always use the Helix strap mount because it means I can easily attach that to just about any bike that I'm riding at that time. I can jump on and off bikes and just easily unscrew the strap, whack it on the next bike, tighten it all up, and off I go. It's very versatile. I've had no vibration issues affecting my camera using the Helix strap. That's the one that I will stand by and swear by. Been using it about 5 years now. So again, if you head to Ultimate Add-ons, that's Ultimate with ADDONS, ultimateaddons.com. If you use the code TEAPOT110, so TEAPOTONE with the number 10, you'll get 10% off all Ultimate Add-ons. Okay, that'll do us for now. Let's get back to the podcast. Okay. This is TeapotOne Insta, at TeapotOne Insta. I'll leave all Joey's socials and his website links and everything down below, folks, so make sure you check them out. First one, Buddy the Biker Dog. Top man, thank you for inspiring me to try harder. What's on your bucket list?
Oh, man, that list is long. I just feel the time running out, man. But I would love to ride a motorcycle in as many countries as possible. Like that is what I'd like to do. And so that's something that I would foresee would take me, my whole life and, wouldn't even get to the end. But that's something that I want to do. So in terms of like, I have no desire to go to like, to be honest, like places like New York or, Paris and these kind of like the places people want to go. Like I want to go to Costa Rica and I want to go to Vietnam and I want to go to all those kind of places and I want to go ride in the Congo and I want to, that's what I want to do. I want to really go to all of those sort of places. So I guess all those type of places would be on my bucket list to go ride in all of those. That's what I want to do. And I want to ride, like I said, with the local guys, man. I want to go to the local places. And when you ride with these guys, you eat the food they eat and, sleep in their places. That's what I want to do. So yeah, bucket list would be, lots and lots and lots of countries.
It's funny you say it. That's exactly what I wanted to do. It's a whole point of me setting up the YouTube channel was that I wanted to like ride in the UK and meet up with bikers and ride their roads and experience their little slice of the biking world, wherever it is people are. I've still not done that. I suppose in a way I kind of have, because I do meetups and we do it in different parts. But no, that's brilliant what you're saying there for sure. I think for me, there's somewhere that Mongolia is somewhere that I remember watching Long Way Round. You know, the Ewan McGregor, Charlie Borman thing. I remember watching that, and that's what really lit the fire for me. That I didn't even ride a bike then, but I remember watching it and thinking, I need to do that. I want to do that. Yeah, I'm a late starter. 2008, I passed my bike test.
Oh, that's cool, man. Yeah. So but that goes to show, you see, like we're talking about that guy who's sitting in I was saying, if you rode a Magnet now, it wouldn't be a big deal for you. You could do that, But literally 14 years ago, you weren't that guy. But here you are, and you've done it all. And that's the thing, is everyone can do that, Not doesn't have to be that particular goal, but they can do whatever they choose. You just put your mind to it, break it into bite-sized chunks, work out that ladder, and get on the first step.
Yeah, absolutely. I always say it to people is that the weak link is us. We are the weak link, and it's you that makes the decision to stop. Whatever your dream is, it's only unattainable, unachievable when you give up.
Yep. I mean, the whole thing with me with the Dakar thing, if you look at it, the point, that I decided, you speak to a lot of guys, I'd love to do Dakar. It's not possible for me. I decided I was going to race the Dakar when I was married with 4 children, completely broke and paralyzed. And I was like, I shouldn't laugh. But... So when a guy, no, that's fine. So when a guy says to me, I'd love to race Dakar, but I just don't have the money, I'm like, yeah, you probably won't, And it's not just a Dakar thing, it's a trip thing, it's anything. If you're looking at the problems, you're not going to do it. But most of the time you can overcome those things. It's just a case of just start working at it, get on that ladder and do those rungs. I mean, it was a 10-year journey for me to get from that position to where I was on that start line. And like I said, over the years, there was many, many times where I thought, I'm crazy. I'm never going to do this. It's just simply impossible. But I would just do the next thing. And so if you look at it, all I had to do was the first step. Well, obviously all the different steps along, but it was like, learn to walk. And how do I do that? I got to do more physio. I got to get better. I've got to get stronger. I've got to eat right. I've got to learn how to handle my new body with, catheters and bowel issues and all this sort of stuff. And you learn those things. And then it's a case of, okay, now I need to ride a bike. And so you buy a second-hand bike, you get the suspension load, you cut the foam out of the seat, you get your feet down, you can ride, and you start to learn. And then it's like, right, now I need to race. Now I need to start finishing races. Now I need to do multiple day races, and boom, 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 boom. And then suddenly I'm in 2015 and I'm going like, I could do this. Yeah. I reckon I could actually do this. And then it was the full commitment. And, within 18 months on that start line.
Right, it's still inspirational to hear it, and I've listened to the book and know the story, and it still sends the old shivers up the spine. Awesome. Right, Central Colorado Mountain Riders. How far is the rip down the beach at Lac Rose on the final day of the Africa Eco Race?
22 kilometers. I will never forget that as long as I live. It's 22 Ks. And I rode those 22 Ks with a torn rotator cuff, with a broken wrist, with my head stitched up, with a plastic bag on my head. And I bawled my eyes out in those goggles. So you talk about guys being honest with their emotions. I cried for 22 kilometers down that beach, man. I was in so much pain. But I just kept going 22 Ks, 22 Ks, 22 Ks.
Yeah.
22
So
Ks.
for people not in the know, this is after you headbutted a camel, wasn't it?
Yeah. So you were talking, you had a rough time getting through Mauritania. So did I. So I hit a camel on the second last day on the liaison. And, at Africa Eco Race, you don't have to ride all the liaisons. There's almost no liaisons on the race, but you can load your bikes on and, on the trailer for the liaisons. And so we rode because we didn't have space in the vehicles and stuff. Some guys trailered, but it was a few hundred Ks in South Mauritania. And we had a camel just step out into the road from behind like a tree and some bushes. We couldn't see it. And myself and Greg, I was in front and I hit the camel. I crashed. Greg hit the camel. He crashed. There was another British rider with us. Forget his name off the top of my head. Two really cool guys. And one guy clipped his legs, but he stayed on. So in essence, like three of us hit the same camel. It's just crazy. But I was unconscious, lying in the desert, head all torn open and just in a mess. Jeez. And ended up being medevaced out. Taken to then they landed the helicopter, put me in a land ambulance. Then we drove for 6 or 7 hours, and we got to the hospital because we had to cross the border into Senegal. And we got to a hospital in Senegal at around about midnight. And then they had to do some x-rays and stuff. They thought I had internal bleeding, and so it was a whole bunch of complications. And the paramedic ended up stitching up my head in the passageway of the hospital. It was just it was a government hospital. So you imagine a government hospital in Africa. It's not in Senegal. It was a bit of a crazy one. And then they got me back to the pits at just at about 6 a.m. as the bikes are leaving. And my team had fixed my bike through the night. And we realized that I'm actually still in the race. Because I've finished all the racing sections for the last 12 days. And all I've got to do is ride 22 Ks on the beach and I finish the race. And I'm like, I literally go around the world telling people about resilience and not giving up. I can't be quitting a race now, So, Lyndon's dad, he helped me out, and they took me down to the beach, and, I put the plastic bag. He put a plastic bag on my head so we could get the helmet over all the stitches and everything. We couldn't fit my gloves on. My hands were all swollen and stuff. So we had to cut all the gloves. My vision is still a bit dodgy. I had tunnel vision from the concussion the day before. And so I'm still all a bit out of it. Broken my wrist, torn rotator cuff. 22 Ks.
Never give up.
Tried to the end. I'll actually have to. I'll send you some pics after this, and you can pop them up so the guys can see what we're talking about.
Mega awesome. Me again, folks. Just a short one. We are also sponsored this month by the Influencer Store. If you go to TeapotOne.com, you'll go to the shop, check out any of the merchandise that I have available. That is all handled by the Influencer Store right here in the UK. I've got a quick bit of blurb to read out for them, and that is, the Influencer Store helps you build your brand big or small, providing you with a solution and apparel. We help you to increase your fan base while supporting you with starting your own influencer clothing line with nothing more than just an idea or design, and there are no hidden costs. For more info, come check us out at theinfluencerstore.co.uk or drop us an email at online@influencerstore.co.uk for more information. Make sure you check them out, folks. Head to TeapotOne.com, head to the shop, and you'll be supporting both the TeapotOne channel and the podcast right here if you buy anything from the merchandise. So a massive thanks in advance to you, and a huge thanks to the Influencer Store. And lastly, folks, I just want to say a massive thank you to you. Thank you very much for listening to the podcast, for watching the vids, for commenting, for liking, for sharing, for following and subscribing. It all is a massive, massive help. We're on a bit of an upturn at the moment. The podcast is gathering momentum. The channel is certainly doing really well. So a huge thanks to everybody who's been involved with that. If you want to go that extra mile, then you can always buy some merch over at TeapotOne.com. Or if you really want to get committed, you can join the clan over at patreon.com/TeapotOne. All links for everything are down below, folks. I appreciate any support in any form you can give. All right, then. That's enough with the beg and bowl. Let's get back to the podcast. Right, next one, Tom Package. Please ask him what it was like being part of the team with Lyndon Poskett. Such a great effort in that event. So this is the Africa Eco Race, wasn't it? The one we just spoke about.
Man, it was honestly it will be a highlight of my life, that race. It was really, really incredible. Lyndon put in such a lot of hard work to get all those bikes prepped, to get all the sponsors on board that helped us with the kits and all that sort of stuff. We still all paid our own way to be there, but he put in so much effort, to put this team together. It was incredible. And obviously, you grow up watching Dakar, racing to Dakar, racing through Mauritania, racing through Morocco, these kind of places. Yeah. And so, obviously my Dakar was Paraguay, Bolivia, Argentina, South America. And it was a super gnarly race. That was cool. But then this opportunity suddenly came up to ride the original Dakar route. And, when Lyndon told me, I'm like, I'm in, man. I'll figure this out. I'm coming. And then, it came up and we did it. And it was really incredible, those 5 riders, we all just became really good mates. I met Matt for the first time there, and Matt was the guy that I just rode in Canada with a little while
He seems
back.
a good laugh.
Matt's magic. He really is good. Mike's a good oak as well, good guy as well. And obviously Greg, Greg's a good mate of mine here in South Africa. He's now living in Australia, but Greg is one of the most solid guys you'll ever meet. Just a super good guy. And so to be able to hang out with these guys, it was just cool. It was like once in a lifetime, the 5 of us as riders. And then we had, the 5 guys who were all the pit crew. And then we had the 2 guys, doing the cameras. And so we had 12 guys. And I promise you, just the best 12 guys you could ever imagine. It was really, really, really just an incredible experience with all of those guys. And, there was a lot of laughing and joking and all this gnarly craziness that happened. It was just it was like you couldn't script an adventure, any better than that. It was, it was cool. It was really cool. It'll be one of those things I'll be in a old age home one day with a bit of drool from my mouth and I'll just be smiling, thinking about racing bikes in Mauritania with those boys.
I remember watching, that's available, folks, over on Lyndon Posket's YouTube channel. You can watch that. Races to Places. It's amazing. And I remember watching it, and I had Dario, Dario Leonetti, who was doing the editing in the 4x4 truck getting thrown around. Yeah. I've had him on the podcast chatting about it. He was the one that actually, he sort of put the word in for me. Yeah, with Lyndon.
He's a top dude there.
Yeah, really, really fun guy, isn't he? Lot of laughs with him. Right, next one. Cheers for that, Tom Package. Next one, Big Horizons. In my honest opinion, we see motorcycle vloggers every day working hard to leverage a past accident or little hardship to try and grow online followers. Ooh, topical. But Joey, you're not one of these pretenders. You're by far the real deal. His physical and mental Hercules journey is mind-blowing and 100% authentic. If anything, he's often just too humble and downplays the real pain and sacrifice he's had to endure. Inspiring, Joey. So he's not got a question. He just wanted to say that.
Oh, man, I can't even tell you how awesome it feels to hear that. There was, leading up to Dakar, I even said, there was... there was a mate of mine and I was leading up to Dakar and stuff. And he said, you got to tell, the guy was Gary Franks. He was, I'm making it sound like he's dead. He's not, but, he's a good mate of mine. And he had a magazine here, called Enduro World. And he said to me, Joey, you got to tell everybody about the accident and stuff. And I was like, no, man, I don't want to use that as like a feel sorry for me thing. You know what I mean? I just want to I want to go race this Dakar. It's like that, but it's like, that has nothing to do with it. It's like, focus on the Dakar. I don't want to use that or anything like that. And he said, no, you're not using it. He said, you're not using it for that. He says, what it is when you tell people that story, it inspires them to overcome their own challenges and their own
100%.
stuff. And it was a hard thing for me to talk about. And like I said, I didn't want to talk about all this stuff because there's a lot of stuff that's difficult, like I was saying with catheters and stuff, that it's like, it's personal. It's like, I don't really want to everyone to know about it. I kind of kept all that sort of stuff secret about me before. and he kind of gave me that push to do it. And he put an article in that magazine. And after that, then it was like out there. And it was, and that was something that changed the way I looked at it. But I've always been like, I'm very like determined to make sure I don't exaggerate anything, that it isn't something that's like worse than it is or anything like that. And so when I hear guys make comments like that, it's just like, I love it, man. It's cool. It's good to hear, man. So thanks, buddy.
Like social media, I think social media is like a double-edged sword, isn't it? It can be evil in a sense that it can portray lies about people, countries, all manner of different topics. It can force people to have insecurities about themselves and their abilities and their looks, all this sort of stuff. But it can also be the best tool in the world for breaking down barriers, for being providing sources of inspiration, such as yourself, for giving people hope. I think a lot of the time as well, to see other people who are in similar situations or maybe even worse than what they're currently in, and to see that people deal with it and get through. It's a difficult one because it's very easy, and this is not a criticism on this chap, Big Horizons. It's very easy to criticize people that you see who you might in your head, you might be thinking, they're utilizing something that's happened to benefit, to gain on social media. But as you've just said there, they can be providing a source of comfort, of inspiration, of hope to people out there who aren't in a position that you're in. Everyone's different, aren't they? So it's
100%. No, I think I can see his point, because obviously it's not so much about what you're doing; it's the motivation for what you're doing. What I mean? And so I think he makes a good point. But it is hard to know when. But something I've also realized is that it's very difficult to compare challenges. People will say to me, "Hey, man, Joey, I had an accident. Like nothing as bad as yours, but I had this thing." And I'm like, "No, there's no such thing as nothing as bad as yours. Some guys won't have an accident anywhere near as bad as mine, but they won't have the support I had, from a family point of view, or they don't have the medical stuff, especially here in Southern Africa. Some guys have things that are nowhere near as bad medically, but they don't have the availability of medical support or whatever. And so it becomes a lot worse. Other people have different financial situations and different, so it's very hard to compare. And so something might feel a really big thing for that guy, where you look at it and you're like, what are you doing? But it is big for him. Yeah.
There's something, I can't remember who said it, but I remember hearing somebody say, the worst thing to happen to you is the worst thing to happen to you. It's still the worst thing, isn't it? And as you said, everyone's different. Everyone has different levels, experiences. Yeah, for sure. Okay, next one, Gavin.Fraser.39. Hi, Bruce. Hi, Joey. You might not get this far, plus you may have already answered this question. Yeah, a lot of the time we only get through the Patreon questions, and sometimes I don't get as far as like Instagram and stuff. But we're here, Gavin. We're here.
There we go.
So great to have you on TeapotOne's Brew Time. I have two people who are a big inspiration to me. That is you and Vanessa Ruck, probably because you both had horrific accidents, and it puts mine in perspective. But I was wondering, do you ever feel that people close to you find it harder than you to let it go? Or you let it get to you that when they just won't let it go and keep saying you have changed or you're not the same person? If so, how do you deal with it? Like yourself, I have to self-catheterize, so I'm open about it, but do feel uncomfortable when in public. Maybe that's what changed my personality. Your audiobook is my go-to when I start to feel sorry for myself. Then I realize I have it easy. So thank you for sharing your experience. P.S. I've posted on Facebook as well. Same question. Okay. So, how do you deal with listening to other people who... We did sort of talk about this earlier, but some people maybe haven't got the same positive frame of mind, the same strength of mind that you have facing whatever it is that they're dealing with. How do you deal with that? If those people are within your circle, where you like taking personal feelings out of things, you maybe just want to grab hold of them, go, buck up, come on, you can do it, get on with it. But everyone's different, aren't they? So how do you deal with this?
Everybody is very different. I think I'm seeing he's kind of got a couple of questions in that, the way that he's phrased that. So first off, people saying you've changed and stuff. That was an experience that I had with Meredith. I was back home. I was in the wheelchair. They put ramps in my house and stuff, so I'm still moving around with a wheelchair. I didn't have any bowel control, that kind of stuff. And I was at home and I had an accident, and it was something that happened often in the beginning. And it's one of the hardest things about a spinal cord injury is losing that kind of control and stuff, because it's a very emotional thing to deal with. It's really difficult. Kind of mentally to come to terms with that. And as I'm in this situation, my daughter said something to me, and obviously I'm in this place where I'm like, oh, you're kidding me, man. This can't be happening, kind of thing. And I like snapped at her, and she was like, whoa, whatever. And I was like, just not now, kind of thing, sort of thing. And obviously then I had to go, and Meredith had to help me, and that was another thing that was really difficult, but she helped me and we got all sorted out and stuff. And then she said to me, hey, you got to remember, she doesn't understand, this, she's just a little girl, she doesn't get it. And she said, she basically said to me, you've changed physically, but you don't have to change mentally, know. And that was something that I was like, whoa, you're right. You know what I mean? And this is something you'll see again and again and again with guys that have, hectic accidents and that kind of stuff, where they end up in wheelchairs and that sort of stuff. Often they'll end up divorced after that. And a lot of people look at it and they will say like, oh, his wife couldn't handle him being in a wheelchair, so she left him. What a selfish lady, or whatever, what kind of thing. They take kind of that approach. But a lot of these guys that end up with these kind of accidents, I can tell you that from my personal experience, that most women, in my opinion, they can completely look past any kind of physical challenges, or physical disabilities. I mean, look around at your buddies, they're all overweight and ugly guys. They're still married. But I
was just thinking, my wife's still with me, so,
Exactly, there you go. But they can overlook that stuff. But what happens is when a guy, sometimes, not all the time, don't get me wrong, but sometimes when a guy is damaged so bad physically, it affects him. He allows it to affect him mentally, and he changes as a person. And so it's not, she's not leaving because you're physically disabled. She's leaving because you've suddenly become a negative guy who has a lot of self-pity, and you're not the fun guy you used to be. But you can still be the fun guy you used to be, and you can still be the positive guy you used to be. You're just different physically now. And so that's the other side of it, is that you don't have to change. You don't have to let your injury or your disability define you. But it's a conscious mental effort to not do that, if that makes sense.
No, yeah, I've got you.
So yeah, that was just a side of it that you got to bear in mind as well, is that you don't let it get to you. You don't let it become your thing. The catheter thing. So I'll, to explain a little bit, because guys don't, fully understand. So with my type of injury, what happens is that I can hold urine, but I struggle to release. So if I'm full, I can probably release about half, but I can't release fully. So, probably, 5 or 6 times a day, I have to take a catheter and stick it in myself, this tube that's about like 40 centimeters long, and manually drain my bladder. And if I don't, then I get bladder infections that result in kidney infections, and, you can have all sorts of complications. Yeah. Now, the first time they explain that to me in the hospital, and they pull out this 40 centimeter catheter that's like, it's almost as wide as a pencil, and they're like, and they explain where this thing's going to go.
Yeah, this goes where?
I'm like, what? And I'm like, geez, man. I'm like, so how long have I got to do this, Yeah. And they're like, probably the rest of your life. And I'm like, are you kidding me? And can I tell you, that was a massive, massive mental thing at the time. I was like, you got to be kidding me. And I would show this thing to buddies when they came to visit me in the hospital, and the guys would just cringe. They'd be like, what? That's just, no, you know what I mean? And it was huge. And for years, you know, it was, I don't know for years, but for a long time, it was like this big issue.
Yeah.
Can I tell you now, it is nothing. It doesn't even cross my mind anymore. It has become such a second nature, easy. I'm like, whatever. I mean, I did it all the way through Dakar, for crying out loud. You know what I mean? It's like, it's a zero issue, because it is purely, it's not a physical thing, it's a mental thing. And it's the way that you view it determines how big a deal it is in your life, you know? And so it's like, you look at guys who struggle with diabetes and things, who have to inject themselves every day. You think, and then you got another guy who's sitting there and he's got to have one injection, and he's like crying and he's pulling back, and this guy's like sticks it in and he carries on with his life, you know, while he's driving, you know. And it's that same thing. It's purely a mental, how you view the challenge. And so you change physically, you don't have to change mentally. I'm just trying to think how he worded it there. There was another side of that about
let me have a little look here. I was wondering, do you ever feel that people close to you find it harder than you to let it go? Have we addressed that one? What's he meaning, let it go? Like, let go anger at what's happened to you? Or what's that mean?
It could be. It affects, you also have to remember, when you have an injury, it affects everyone around you. It doesn't just affect you. And I didn't realize that when I broke my back. I realized that, but I thought, I'm the one going through all the pain here. You know, for you guys, it's easy. You're not the ones going through it. You know, that's kind of how I viewed it. Now, I'm going to share something with you that's hard to talk about, but it was nearly 2 years ago now. December 19th will be 2 years ago. My daughter, who's 19, had a horrific car accident. And what happened, there was a guy, an older guy, he was like 82, and he passed out, or it appears he passed out, and he just went heavy foot and swerved into oncoming traffic. And he had a head-on collision with my daughter's car, and it was like 2:30 in the afternoon, sunny day, dry roads. She was on her way to work, and she ended up in this massive head-on collision, and she was still conscious. And the lady behind witnessed the whole accident, and she gave the lady my phone number, and the lady phoned me, and I knew where my daughter was going. And so I just ran out the house with my wife and my other daughter, and we just raced to the scene as quick as we could. And we got to the scene of the accident before the paramedics. And so I get to the scene, and there's my daughter's car completely crushed. The other guy's car is completely crushed. He's dead in his car. You know, he died on impact and everything. Just all the cars mangled and everything like that. It's just this horrific, horrific scene. And I reach in the car, and my daughter has broken, all the cars come in on her airbag deployed. She was wearing a seatbelt and everything, but she's broken her fib tib. She's broken her femur, broken her pelvis, broken her arm. Her legs are all cut up with all the damage coming in. And she's trying to hold her leg from flopping over because all the bones are just broken. I mean, her shin was like 90 degrees. It was 45. And then she's got this middle piece with a knee that's just flopping around. She's trying to hold it with her broken arm as well. And I reached in that car, and I just kind of held her legs like this, waiting for the paramedics. And then they ended up cutting her out the car. And then what happened was she had a massive fat embolism shower where all the marrow went into her bloodstream. And so it blocked up all her lungs. And so they got her to the hospital, and then her oxygen levels started plummeting. And so then they had to intubate her into an induced coma. And then her levels kept dropping, and she's on 100% oxygen. And then they told her she's not going to make it, you know. And that was just, oh man, that was so incredibly hard. And then her heart stopped, and they resuscitated her. And it happened 3 times. And it was about 3 o'clock in the morning. they said, this is kind of it now. There's nothing else we can do. You need to prepare yourself for that she's not going to live until the morning. And man, as a dad, that was just, that's the hardest thing you can go through. And I said to them, is there not a machine that can take the blood out of her body, oxygenate it, and put it back in? Because her lungs have all filled up with fluid now.
Yeah.
And so, they can't get oxygen into the blood. And they said there is a machine. It's called an ECMO machine, but it was the middle of a COVID spike at the time. And there is nothing in all of Johannesburg available. There's no machines. And also, even if we did, she might lose her leg. And I said, that's fine, man, but they said there's nothing. We can't get a machine. And
Jesus.
And it was just like, oh man. And we sat outside that room, and I said to my wife, I said, man, if we're going to lose our daughter, I want to know that I did everything I could in my power, before that. And so what I did is I started phoning around, and I was phoning everyone I could think of in the medical industry, because it's 3:30 in the morning. Sorry, just give me a sec. And so I started phoning around, and I phoned my physiotherapist, and I phoned another guy I knew who was a maxillofacial surgeon, and couldn't get hold of either of them. And then the third phone call I made was to the doctor who had fused my back when I was in hospital, when I broke my back. And the reason I had his cell phone number is because I'd gone back to the hospital several times over the years and done talks for the guys who were in the rehab center there. And that's why I had his cell phone number. Because, we'd communicated like that, because normally you wouldn't have a guy's cell phone number. And I explained the situation. He answered at 3:30 in the morning, and I explained the situation. He said, give me 15 minutes, I'll come back to you. 15 minutes later, he phones me back. He says, right, I've got a machine. I've got a cardiothoracic surgeon that you're going to need to hook it all up. And I've got the person who has to operate the machine like an operator, and they're heading out to you. And, within a few hours they were there, and she was still alive, and they hooked her up to the machine, and it literally kept her alive for the next 4 days. And she stayed in a coma for 3 weeks, and she had kidney failure. She was on dialysis while she's on ECMO. She got ECMO on the one side, dialysis on the other. They couldn't operate on her because she's on blood thinners for all the stuff. It turned out she was allergic to heparin, which was the blood thinner she was on. She had multiple strokes through her brain. She had it was all this sort of stuff. And she ended up being in hospital, for 10 weeks. It was just a crazy thing, but she lived, and she came home, and she's still got some stuff, we're working through now and things, but she's still on track for a full recovery, and 2 years in now. But you talk about affecting others. Now, I can tell you without a doubt that that this experience has been way worse than breaking my back, and yet I've had zero physical pain from this. And so it's one of those where sometimes it's harder when you're not the person who's injured.
Yeah, you're not in control, are you? You're not in control of what happens to you there. You feel out of control.
It is.
Never give up, brother. Never give up.
But when someone's injured, it's that person, but it's also everyone around you. And you need to be aware of that.
Yeah. Wow, man. Powerful stuff. Bloody hell. Wow.
Sorry, that was a big one I dropped on you there. Sorry, man.
No, man. It's life, though, isn't it? It is life. The next one, Mike it sort of follows on from this. He says, I was fortunate to meet Joey at the ABR festival. What an amazing and inspirational guy. How do you manage to stay so positive? We sort of addressed this early on, but in that situation, it struck home when you just said there what happened to your daughter, and you said, I couldn't live with myself if I knew I hadn't tried every possible avenue and opportunity.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think.
Sorry, go on.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think positivity comes from hope. If you can still keep a hope of a future or a hope of something, that gives you purpose to get there. And so I think it's like in your life, I thought after I broke my back and all that sort of stuff, like I've had my big thing, like my life now will just goes on out. I've had it.
Yeah.
And then when that happened, with my daughter, I was like, are you kidding me? Like this is so incredibly unfair. But probably what kept me positive through all of that is the hope that she may recover, the hope that we might one day get there. And so that made it worthwhile to keep pushing and to keep being positive. And so I think sometimes you just have to see the hope. You have to see the possibility of it getting better. Sorry, man. Sometimes we focus. Sometimes we focus and we see all the bad and we don't see the little bits of good. And obviously, what life is like sometimes. Sometimes it is a lot of bad with just a little bit of good. And sometimes a lot of good, a little bit of bad. But it's what you focus on. And I read something, I can't remember who said it now, and I should give credit to the person who did, but they said, when you have different experiences or different things, that thing happens, and then you attach a weight to it of how much it means. And when somebody's positive, what you're doing is you attach big weights to positive stuff and you attach little weights to negative stuff. So you don't have any more positive stuff happening to you than the next guy does. You could both have the same amount of things happen. The negative guy attaches a lot of weight to negative stuff. The positive guy attaches a lot of weight to positive stuff. So it's,
it's weighted in either mentality.
So when you say, people talk about like, oh, you're always so positive, it's almost like lots of good stuff happens to you. It's not, it's the same, but you focus on the good and you don't focus on the bad. You add that weight on the good. That's where I'm putting my focus. The bad, I'm not. And that gives you a better positive outlook. And like we were saying earlier, when you're positive and you're heading in a direction, the world conspires with you to get in that direction. So you kind of, you pick those good things and you look at those good things and you look at, you focus on the positive stuff in your life, and then, it's, things do work out better when you focus on the positive.
I find, I think I'm generally generally a positive sort of person. I think I'm a glass half full type of guy. Is it half full or half empty? I'm on the positive side of it. I always half full, yeah. But I do get waves every now and then. I do just have little waves where you just have a downer, and I can totally sympathize with people who get themselves into big waves of depression and just don't see a way out of it. I've never been that bad, but sometimes it's just like, oh Jesus, I
know 100%. Look, I'm with you as well, and it still happens to me now. I'm not a guy who's always positive. And it's like, you talking about social media earlier. I joke with my buddies. They'll be like, "Oh, Joe, you're traveling all over the world. It's fantastic." And I'm like, hey. That's Facebook Joey. Facebook Joey. That guy is styling, man. He's got like an awesome life. Real life Joey is like, he's hacking his way along, man. He's just trying to stay in the game. And it is a lot like that. It's I'm not always positive. I'm not always like got it all together. I struggle, man. And it's like, and you feel that downer. I see, for me, and I mean, everyone's different and there's different chemical balances and there's a lot more to this than we can fix with some positive words, But for me, what I find is I see that kind of route as like a spiral staircase that goes downwards. And I can feel when I start putting my foot on that first step and that second step. And I find that that's the time where I need to I need to turn around and get off that staircase. And if I start going down those stairs, then I just feel it like, and I just get that self-pity, and I'm like, and this is wrong, and this is wrong, and this ain't gonna work out, and I feel like an idiot doing this stuff, and I don't know why I'm like, and it's like I start going click, 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 click down those stairs, and it just ends in a bad place. And so for me, those couple stairs, well, we don't do the staircase. We don't do it. Yeah.
I think that's important for people to hear, that it's not always great. It's not always positive. It's entirely normal to have your down times when you're not feeling like you're going to take on the world. It's entirely normal. But as you said, it's how you recognize that and how you deal with it sort of determines where you go from there, really, doesn't it?
Yeah. And it is. There's times in your life where you're styling. You know, I'm actually doing a talk with some guys this week, and I've been doing a lot of it today. And I'm comparing two things. I'm talking about full throttle, and when it's like it's good and it's going, and you're like, you're pinning it. You know, it's feeling good. And then there's times where you're going 10 more meters, 10 more meters, 10 more meters, and there were times of the Dakar where I was like 10 more meters, just in those dunes, 10 more meters, sometimes 3 more meters. But it's like, and so it's like, it's the same with life. You know, there's times where you're just cruising along and it's like, man, this is the best. I got the best job. I got the best stuff. Everything's working out. My family's healthy. My marriage is good. Everything's cool. And there's other times you're like, how am I going to get through today? You know what I mean? And so if you're in that place, get into survival mode. You know, 10 more meters, 10 more meters, 10 more meters. Just hack it through with survival mode until you're twisting again.
Nice one. Right, last question. Simon John 249. Just finished reading his book. What an inspirational story. Brilliant speaker and all-round top bloke too. No question. He's just saying that. Man.
Love it.
Joey, it's been an absolute pleasure, mate, to chat to you. It genuinely has. I think people are going to listen to this, and there's going to be a lot of people out there who are going to get a lot of positive things from this. And you know, I have one close mate for sure who I'll be plunking this in front of and saying, listen, just listen.
Oh, so, man, just keep going, man. Keep going. Whatever it is, you know, you look back at your life, there's good and bad in the past, and there's good and bad in the future. So yeah, it's going to be good.
Nice.
And let's go ride.
Mate, absolutely. For sure. If you're coming over to the UK, or even, you know, if you're going to be in Europe, give me a shout, and I'll, you know, it's nice and easy for us here in the UK. We can just jump across. So that'd be mega. Yeah. And if I ever find myself down Joburg way, I'll give you a shout.
You do that. And for people listening, man, reach out. You know, let's connect. That'll be good.
Mint. Awesome.
You know what I'd like to do as well? Just before I forget, sorry, man. I'm gonna send you a copy of my book, and I'll send it to you in you know, an ebook, you know, so you got a digital format, and you're welcome to put a link for the guys, and then they can download it for free. So anybody who wants to read it, they can download it. Easy game. I'll send you that, and you can figure out how you put it over there with a link in the bio or whatever, that the guys can all get that, and then, you know, they're welcome to just download, and they're welcome to share it as well.
Mate, that's fantastic. Thank you very much for that. It's hugely appreciated. Thank you. I will, folks, sort that out in the description. So if you're listening to the podcast, it might take a wee while, but if you listen to the podcast, check out the show notes. And if you're watching the vid, have a look at the vid description. There'll be a link there, or on my socials as well. I'll pop it in there. Cool. Joey, if people want to find out a little bit more about you, if they want to follow your socials, you've got a website and things, can I pass it over to you? Plug away, whatever you need to.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. With the website, it's joeyevans.co.za. And that's really the website I use for like all the speaking sort of stuff. And so that's more on the speaking side. Social media, I'm on Instagram. It's Joey_Evans_132. On Facebook, Joey Evans, and then also on LinkedIn, you know, connect up on there as well. Yeah, that'd be great. And good to hear from you guys.
Are you not on TikTok?
No. we have a joke. My daughters are, you know, and they're often posting like TikToks on the family chat line and stuff, you know. And so I'm like, I don't even get this stuff, you know. But well, we have a joke here in South Africa that like the guys that are on TikToks are the same guys who make the salad at a braai.
Enough said. Folks, I'll leave all Joey's links down below, so make sure you give him a like, a follow, subscribe, all that sort of stuff. Mate, absolute pleasure chatting with you. Thank you so much for coming on. And thanks, I hope the paths cross in the future and we get to meet up and share a beer. That'll be awesome. Mega.
We'll make sure they happen and the world will conspire with us.
Beautiful, beautiful. Right, folks, hope you've enjoyed this one. I certainly have. As always, keep looking after those that you love. Get on out there whenever you possibly can and live your life. Woo-ha! Dude, that was mint. Really enjoyed that.